they have a logo that has a ring around it. Like for example, Nike. The Nike isn't it's a swoosh, but it's actually a ring. It's probably it looks like a ring of a planet. Then you even have the car company Saturn, which is logo. It's funny because Saturn is a cube logo. Toyota got the three rings. I don't know. That's like very like symbolic. The three, whatever. A lot of these car companies they have, and even other companies as well. They have like a logo with a ring around it, which is like their, you know, I don't know if that's some sort of like giving their energy to Saturn or whatever. But they used to have a cartoon a long time ago. I wasn't born, but I saw this cartoon somewhere. It was like the planets in space and Saturn. They animated all the planets with a face, and Saturn had like a Juno's on it, and he was like swinging a rope around like Earth or something. I forget exactly what was going on, but it was
Now,
very like
okay, I
symbolic.
I had found this. There's a story by Voltaire written in 1752 called Micromegas, and I think this is the first. Because this is of course the neo enlightenment and stuff, and it's like this is the first example of science fiction where it's about someone traveling from Sirius to Saturn, and the Sirian, and the Saturnian have a conversation. But yeah, 1752, alien from Saturn, alien from Sirius, and the guy from Sirius travels to Saturn, which I think is the original story of Space Odyssey, traveling to Saturn. But very interesting how far back this story goes. I mean, that's old. That's hundreds of years old.
Have you ever come across any videos by OCS 101 on YouTube, like way back, probably going back like 5, 6, 7 years?
OCS 101. I'll look into it, but no, what is it about?
So this is how I literally like this is how I kind of like picked up on this. He started pointing things out. The guy, like you do a very good job of like presenting it. He doesn't, but he kind of has like a more advanced, in-depth like understanding of it, and he tries to explain it. And sometimes it just like I can't take it. It's too much. Like it's too much like stuff. Like I gotta like take a break for a couple weeks and then come back, try to like understand it again, look at it from a different angle. But a lot of this stuff he points out with the number three and Saturn and very like similar things, but more so with like color codes and numbers and um, things of that nature.
Yeah, it goes deep, and I skim the surface in a lot of ways. And I plan to do a series of 10-minute short vids where I do a deep dive onto these topics in a more nuanced way, because I'm looking at these things where Elon Musk on Halloween wears a red costume with a ram on it. Well, he's the guy taking us to Mars. And if you look at the associations, Mars is associated with the ram and the color red, corresponding to his suit, and he looks just like the Emperor from the Tarot card, who's an Emperor in a red suit with a ram. And the
And
suit is called,
Mar
yeah,
also means breakdown in Hebrew as well.
well, the as you can see, then he's definitely like I would say a very encoded character. Even the name Elon means oak, which has some significance, I think, to the Druids, which means knower of the oak. But here he is, the Devil's Champion. That's the name of his costume, and his rocket that he launched, the SN8, has a 42 on it, which is the symbol of Saturn, and it crashes to the ground on 2/2 last year, the 33rd day of the year. And I'm convinced that the SN8 is just a clever way of S8N, like Satan falling. Like I think they in our face they have their way of using anagrams and reversing the numbers, but they tell their stories for those who can read their witchy language, which is actually what it is.
Yeah, there's like crazy stories. Like the guy goes like that I was mentioned earlier, he goes like biblically like into some stuff. But he got like bans from YouTube and he had to go and make a separate site where you have to log in. I don't even know what it's called, but I have the website. So I go in there time to time to look at stuff, but just like he goes like really like hard into the shit. Some like I know I'm not like I get like depressing sometimes because like the more you find out, the more it's like the less you actually know.
Yes, that it's daunting. It really is. And one of the things that I realize is that what the quote normie or the NPC, what they see is a world that's been defined, and the explanations they've been given suffice. And because they don't have any questions, they don't have any cognitive dissonance because they don't know how big they've been lied to. It's like they're in the Truman Show, but they haven't cracked it yet. They haven't noticed the patterns yet. They haven't
But
learned
how do they get this way?
because I think it's because we're born into it by default. And I think that the system is built on lies. And it's not just the liars on the screen, but it's the believers in the lies who repeat them. Like, I think our system is built on beliefs that are malleable and controllable as long as the elite have control over media. And what I mean is, we're people who believe stuff, so we're lost. We don't know. And it's a joke to them that we're in the dark. That's why they call themselves the Illuminati. They have the light. I think ultimately that's what we're looking at here, a world in a false light by the ones who are keeping them in darkness. And it's pretty obvious the effects of it. It's 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 an old system. We've been born into a mental quarantine, and I think we are some who have broken quarantine.
Yeah, I agree.
But the NPCs are just the ones who don't rock the boat. And I think the system is designed to maintain an equilibrium. That way, people are so comfortable that they don't see anything wrong with it. And that was the whole thing about the Matrix. It's meant to be seductive, it's meant to be a comfortable alternative to the real.
And it's great. Like I work in a restaurant, and it's just like everybody is an NPC. Nobody can see this. Even when I like try to like just mention it a little bit, it's like they don't see it, or somebody else comes in talking louder over me. It's like fucking like absurd. It's
They Agent
very
Smith you.
strange.
Yeah, it's like the Truman Show where they literally come in to distract. Oh, this one's veering off course. They have to, like a guardrail, bump you back in.
They
And
have the NPCs programmed to do that, to do damage control. This is a very intelligent like propaganda they have.
yeah, say what you will of Ike, David Ike, but in his book Children of the Matrix, one of the last chapters is one of the best things he ever wrote. And he said, "We are the prison wardens." He's like, you can blame the reptiles or whoever, but when it comes down to it, every person that follows the program is an extension of the elite. The elite isn't some group, far away from us on some island. No, the elite is your next door neighbor, the mask Karen, the next door neighbor that reports you for coughing after they declare a pandemic, thinking that you might get hauled away and quarantined. Like that's the way the system works. But it's not bad news to me to find out how deceived we are. I think it's good news. I haven't been triggered by the news in a long time, and I'm not bothered by the NPCs around me because I have this. If it wasn't for this think tank that's been, just been trudging along for these last few years, yeah, it would be maddening. It would be because and then you try to talk to somebody and you blurt out too much and they think you're crazy. But not that I need that validation. I mean, I know I'm right, but it's helpful to have other people to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, I'm happy that I found this channel, and I think I started like listening over like maybe 6 7 months ago, and before that, I like I said, that other guy I would listen to every now and then, but he would drop some really heavy stuff, and like you said, it gets too daunting, and I got to give it a break because like I got work, I got other shit to do, and like sometimes that shit kind of like makes you start to really think, and you forget to do your prison life chores, your
Right.
slave
Yeah.
life work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And and that's what I don't do here. Is like I look at this thing. I have a 30-year plan. I don't think I'm going to be triggered by anything. I'm trying to maintain situational awareness, and I'm not getting dragged into the dramas here. And this platform is going to remain more or less neutral, and it's going to remain open to all sides. I'm not into censorship here at all, whatsoever. And we're going to maintain sanity. This is an oasis of sanity. We're more in the know than anyone that is on this side of the fence, which I think is the reason why we need to maintain this thing, and why I appreciate callers like you and of course all the chatters, because the think tank itself, it's better than any AI generator or any chat GPT. You can get real original ideas and real people. No need to
Yeah, this is amazing. I've never like seen this anywhere on any channels that I've watched and anything. Like you can send a message on one thing and it just transfers over across everything.
Yeah, we have a funnel, and that's the whole thing. We have a funnel, and I get tips by text, by email, and through the think tank nonstop. And we've seen some periods where the channel blows up, and I get inundated with comments, and it's just unbelievable the human intel we have access to. But anyway, appreciate the call very much, and call back anytime.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tim. I'm looking to get into this. Maybe like start a channel as well. This is really great. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Sure,
I'm
anytime.
gonna make a note.
CIA be lurking, I be in the turban. Little ones stay cursing, older ones out twerking. Talking about lack of education, streets are always dangerous. Bluetooth speakers playing, do you really hear what they saying? Do you know what that mean? Are you down for the team? They speak through signs and symbols, you can learn about these things. Fly by 9/11, club of 27. Once you think that they in heaven, nah bruh, it's a legend. It's all according to the code. Them Illuminati with my mind, body, and my soul. That's why they snatching bodies. Everybody in a Holly Grove. Deception is a hobby, switching roles with the auto close. We call that an auto hoax.
Man, what you trying to prove? Don't you know we've been around the globe and been to the moon?
Get it, that's an auto hoax.
You're tripping, times two. What about the shootings that they always cover on the news?
Real, that's an auto hoax.
They don't move, we will make the way. Let it spray, right reality like an AKA. Let them know we don't play. They live like life's a party, but it's really like a breakaway. Meditate, focus your attention on your better days. You know what I'm talking about. Don't let these slimy narcissists, antichrist out there turn your eye. Freedom of speech is actuality. That's why the truth must spread by word of mouth, word of mouth. It's all according to the code. Damn Illuminati with my mind, body, and my soul. That's why they snatching bodies, everybody in the Holly Grove. Deception is a hobby, switching roles with the auto clone. Let me turn on my auto hoax.
Not even a proven fact. The floor curves into a spinning ball, and you can test for that.
Globe is an auto hoax.
Man, you must be trolling me. Scientific theories aren't what they are shown to be.
Yup, that's an auto hoax.
So what you're saying is you don't accept the claim as missing proof, then you label it.
Exactly, it's an auto hoax.
Wow, sports is scripted by the
John
number.
charged with COVID-19 fraud didn't actually surprise me. I had no idea who this man was, but I knew about the curse of the Red Power Ranger and had been waiting to see who it would take out next. St. John, who played the character Jason, was in a scheme that netted $3.5 million. Loan fraud is a serious crime with significant consequences, including fines, imprisonment, or both, as he has learned. Strangely, this is actually the least crazy thing to happen to those associated with the Red Power Ranger role. Power Rangers began as a live-action children's television series in the 1990s, and it features a group of young people fighting against evil forces. Sadly, however, they have not fared so well with the evil in their real lives. Previous Power Rangers have suffered tragic lives and fates. One committed a double murder and robbery. Another killed his roommate with a samurai sword. Another Power Ranger beat his wife nearly to death and killed himself. And now only one final Red Power Ranger remains, and he has been on a troubling path. And what could explain this? A curse, perhaps? Let's examine the case of Skylar DeLeon, convicted of double murder. He lured his victims out to sea, forced them to sign legal contracts, tied them to an anchor, and threw them overboard. Defense lawyers claimed DeLeon needed the money for a sex change. A few years later, Skylar, who had been born a male, attempted a sex change in jail with a razor blade. This failed,
And after receiving medical attention, Skyler returned to jail. Another fallen TV star from the Power Rangers pled guilty to stabbing his roommate to death with a samurai sword. Ricardo Medina killed his roommate after an argument over Medina's girlfriend. The Red Lion Wild Force Rangers defense team argued that after he and his roommate had come to blows in one part of the house, the actor locked himself in a bedroom, and the other guy broke through the bedroom door and charged, after which Medina stabbed him multiple times with the samurai sword, according to the L.A. District Attorney's Office. Pua Magasiva, who played the Red Ranger on Power Rangers Ninja Storm, was found dead at his New Zealand home. Magasiva beat his wife so severely that she feared for her life, according to his widow. There was an escalating pattern of abuse, and he threatened to harm himself or their daughter if they went to the police. On the night of the death, he savagely attacked his wife, leaving her in need of hospitalization. On the night he died, she said his drunk rages returned, and it ended with her in the hospital and him taking his life. And now we arrive at the last Red Power Ranger standing, actor Marcus Goldfinch.
Okay, I'll get it started a little early. This is Chief Crow Auto Hoax, or GTFO. I put a link to the track in the chat below. Phones are open. Backup number tonight. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, caller, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, what's up? Main topic tonight, I haven't even announced it, but mainly it's going to be the balloon. Do you have an opinion?
Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Okay, what's your take on the balloon?
When I read it the first time, okay, it's almost the same stories. When they remember the first witness they asked on 9/11, that guy that was down there, yeah, they asked him, oh yeah, it melted because of the hot stuff and everything, and he gave a whole description of what happened.
Like he was a structural engineer who knew everything about the melting point of jet, everything, melting point of steel. Yes, he knew everything all at once. I remember that guy.
Yeah, the first story on the balloon was some guy in Montana saw it, and he said what it was, and he said how high it was, and he gave all this stuff. He's just nobody. How would he know any of this stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
First of all,
from the ground, right?
First of all, they said it was 60,000 feet plus up. You can't see it at 60,000 feet up. That's 12 miles. You can barely see a 747 at 30,000 feet. And you want to say it's 12 miles up and you can see this balloon? It wouldn't be visible.
I agree with you there, and I've seen similar accounts, and I find it very dubious. I mean, my initial thought on it was that the Harley guy, as someone in chat pointed out, the Harley guy in 9/11, yeah, there was a similar explanation for this event, and it looked to me like maybe just one of their CubeSats, SpaceX CubeSat dipped too low, and this was a cover story. But now looking at it, it seems like it's connected to a bigger agenda. What do you think the agenda is behind this thing, or do you think it's just a glitch?
No, it was too well orchestrated. It had to be something, but I just know the story is okay. Did you see where they said the airplane circled it and had like a trail of the airplane where it circled it? Did you see that report?
Please tell me about that report, because I saw one, but I thought it was possibly a deep fake. I saw one.
They said it was the F-22 had went up there and circled the balloon.
Yes, that's the main story that's going around.
That was the very first one in Montana. And so I go real quick to the government site and look up F-22s. F-22 is ceiling, and that's the very ceiling. It can only go the coast is 52,000 feet. They can't even get up to 60,000 feet. And then on the last day when they shot it down, they tried to put a news article. Oh, we have jet fighters can go up to 65,000 feet, and they tried covering that up. But the F-22 was no more than 52,000 on the ceiling feet, and that's gliding. It's not like they can do much else. So that was
Gotcha.
another one. It was terrible. It was just a horrible story. And they got, huh?
What about the footage of it? Like the cameraman who recorded the thing blowing up? Because I thought the footage was pretty good if it was from the ground, and if it wasn't from the ground, who was recording it? I thought that was a little unusual.
I after the first day, and I knew it was such BS, I didn't even watch it anymore. I said, this is just garbage. I said, some guy could see a balloon on the ground in Montana at 60,000 feet. That's if it's straight up above you, it's 12 miles. Let's say it's out 10 miles that way, and that's where it looks like he had an angle at. What are you looking at? It's no way. If it was real, it was no way 60,000 feet. There's no way.
Agreed. And I'm looking at it as when I first saw the image of it close up, I thought, why does this thing look like a TIE fighter in between the solar panels? And behind the TIE fighter, you see the Death Star. And it looks like the Death Star. And I thought, this is kind of a callback visually to Star Wars. And Star Wars was the name for the Strategic Defense Initiative, Reagan's Star Wars, preparing us for space war. I think this might be some kind of space war tie-in.
I don't think it's anything. I think it's just a distraction. I really do. Unless there's a bigger picture down the road, like you just said. But whatever it is, it was such an easy. I always call these just the barometer for a gullibility test. That's all.
You know what?
You know?
When I saw them rolling out, it's a Chinese spy camera and it's sucking up your TikTok data. I'm like, okay, who's gonna fall for this? Well, yeah, pretty much anybody on the right. It's like, yeah, it's China, and Biden's letting them record our TikTok videos or whatever they happen to be doing with TikTok, which has been kind of demonized. It's to me, it's kind of a barometer as well that people will believe anything.
That's all. Just another toilet paper theory.
Well, if nothing
Just
else,
like
though, this is an opportunity to say something about the fact that everything that is said to be done, every function said to be done by an orbiting satellite could just as easily be done by a balloon. Like, this is no longer a secret. It's not a conspiracy theory. The people who have been talking about sataloons for a long time, I think, have been vindicated. Why would you have a CubeSat hurling around at 17,000 miles per hour going around the world when you could just have it up there peacefully, dangling?
And it does. It looks like what the people who've seen the ISS transit, right? And it does. Like when you said that the other day, the first time you looked at it, you said that reminded you of the ISS, the shape of it. The one when they see it and they transit, and people got pictures of it transit in front of the sun, in front of the moon.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It actually looks very similar to the ISS. Its shape and everything. It's pretty much that bunch of cylindrical modules around a centerpiece with a window.
The only thing that gets me is the balloon wasn't transparent. All the balloons we see go up, and all the lifts and they've been doing for all these couple of decades, they're transparent. So I don't know this. So the reason is that's just a regular weather balloon they're trying to call, and it's a solid opaque color that you can see. So that something's just all wrong. It's just all wrong. That's all.
I agree. And tonight I'm going to be going through what I've found so far, suggesting that maybe this is part of a bigger psyop. I believe that the sighting of it, or no, when they shot it down, it was, I think, the 1 year anniversary of the movie Moonfall, which is about sky infrastructure falling, the moon falling. There may be some kind of deeper meaning to this, but my first instinct was CubeSat drifted too low. They need a cover story.
So it could, the people taking the pictures that we did see, if that's the pictures, pretty much all the same pictures it seemed like, but it couldn't have been 60,000. You can't take a picture of it 12 miles away. You can't. You wouldn't see it. I mean, that's just the point right there. So when it went down, could the people on the ground actually see it? All these people saying they could see it?
Not at that altitude. I've seen Googaloons. I've seen these before on multiple long walks in the summer, and I don't know if it's the temperature, but for some reason, some of them dip low enough where I can see them, and they're transparent, but you see the reflection, and you can tell that it's a spherical object in the sky. And I generally can't even see the thing that's dangling below it. But there's no way these things are 60,000 feet up and visible to anyone like that. I think
On
that,
this story, there's no way it was 60,000. I agree with you.
no,
And
I agree. It's got to be. I mean, this could just be stock footage. It could be CGI. There could be false witnesses. I don't know anybody that saw it.
that's what I'm saying. It looked pretty. It just reminds me of them going asking the people on 9/11, look at this, and they all had the story already.
Yes,
You know?
exactly, exactly. Like, nobody knew about satelloons or altitudes or how high they fly, how these things even work. You'd say, oh, satellites are just, dangling from balloons. They would say, oh, you must be a flat earther. There's no such thing. Well, no, these are actually commonly used, and this is what I think SpaceX actually is, and that's one of their big secrets. That's why I'm glad this happened. If nothing else, you can point out that this is probably your SpaceX, um, what do you call it, Starlink satellite. Your Starlink is a balloon.
My very first thing I thought, the very first thing I thought when I saw it when it was coming out, I thought, oh, a balloon came down too low. It was just going to be a cover story. Could it be just that simple? And of course, we know the reason it didn't shoot it down over land or take it down over land is because we'd see what's on it. Just like when a few years ago when that thing crashed in Michigan and it had the Samsung photos and ID thing. Do you remember that?
No, what was that
When,
about?
when in Michigan, when one of their satellite balloons crashed in Michigan.
Oh, yeah, that was the Samsung selfie camera.
Yes,
That one,
it's supposed
yeah.
to be in space.
Oh, yeah, that was a big reveal as well. People went to a party where they were told that their selfie was being projected onto a satellite with the backdrop of the Earth, and therefore you're getting a
Right.
space selfie. Well, what happened is the Curverts used a GoPro lens on a camera 20 miles up and didn't tell them. And they thought that they were being photographed, quote, in space. Well, that camera satellite that you're mentioning, yeah, it fell on somebody's front lawn, and it was basically a balloon, and it said on there Samsung space satellite. I'm like, it doesn't even get close to space.
Well, if you look at all the pictures, they almost always had the balloon cut out. You can see strings to the Samsung satellite part, right? But unless you knew what it was, you wouldn't know. I don't think there was one that showed a balloon in the crash. All the pictures were cropped that were showed no balloon.
Right, nobody knew it was a balloon until it fell in somebody's yard, and that was a purposeful misrepresentation. They let people mislead themselves, they're dishonest, they omit things. So that is a lie by omission when they cut the balloon out. And when they say it's from space and they bend the horizon line, I don't know. I mean, if you can't see through that, I guess there's no help for you anyway. But yeah, that was an accident. It just fell on somebody's front lawn. Luckily, it didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, and you've been following us enough years. I'm Harmon. I'm the one that's talked to you before.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
We've talked about a number of things, definitely.
right. Anyway, so I was calling in to get it out of the way right quick so you can get back to your show. It's just that it's in all these guys listening to all these truth channels. None of them's talking about it. They're acting like, what's this, right? This. I said you couldn't see it. Not at that height. You cannot see it. Sound like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but you cannot see it at that height.
That's such a good point. I'm glad you're bringing that up because there are so many things that just one thing that always got to me was people saying that they've seen the space station at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., at midnight, and I'm like, you can't. It's too low, and hypothetically, if it was even there, it would be in the shadow of the Earth. You couldn't possibly see it, and
So that's the only thing I can say. That could have been one of those decoys. That's all. That's it looked like the same picture they see. You know that. You said that your first impression was that. I remember.
right, exactly. Yeah, if the ISS that we see during transits is some kind of balloon-borne prop, that could have been it. Anyway, I appreciate the call very much, and I'll go through whatever else I have that might give us any other indication as to the meaning behind this thing.
All right, people listening in, you guys make sure you sign up to his. Oh man,
The
I'm so
Patreon, yeah,
tired. What
yeah, it's
Patreon?
Patreon.
Make sure you do his Patreon, guys. Make sure you do it.
Appreciate the
Okay,
shout
that's
out
it.
there, and definitely appreciate the call in as always. Have a great
All
evening.
right, bye.
And if you want to sign up for Patreon, it's patreon.com/Infinite Plane Society. And right now, there is a 1 month free trial, which means you get all the live notifications, you get the newsletters, you get access to the Discord server, and the first bill, which is only $1 a month. I'm working on volume, and right now I'm just trying to bring people in for the notifications alone. If you want the free ebooks, other things, yeah, there's higher tiers, but $1 gets you in, free month trial, and it gets you on the list. That way, as things progress, whatever happens, you don't miss anything. And you're not, it's not just me, obviously, it's the entire think tank and the research pool and what we bring to the table that you don't want to miss. Angle of Elevation says, why spend $1 billion for a satellite when you can do it for 33,000? This is probably a test to see what people believe. Yeah, that was sort of my take, but then I look at the symbolism here. And if you look at it close up, it looks exactly like a TIE fighter. This is pinned on my Twitter account, Real Tim Osman. And positioned as it is, below the balloon, it looks like a TIE fighter coming out of a Death Star, which is a direct reference to Star Wars, which was the derisive name for SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative, Reagan's Star Wars thing, which has all really been recycled with Space Force. Trump has really just been, in so many ways, a lot of recycling. By the way, we have spent a lot of time talking about Damar Hamlin. We've been talking about the number 3 and the hearts and how this even tied into Tyree Nichols and this constant reference to the heart. Well, here is Kendrick Lamar wins Best Rap Performance for The Heart, Part 5 at the Grammys. This is very significant. If you're not familiar with Kendrick Lamar's work, there was the Mr. Morale and the is it High Steppers? There's an album where he's got a song where he morphs. The face is a deep fake, and he turns into Kanye West. He turns into Will Smith. He turns into OJ. And yeah, Kendrick Lamar's The Heart Part 5 video deepfake. So the video I'm referencing is actually the one he got the award for. And again, he turns into OJ. He turns into Kanye West. He turns into Nipsey Hussle. And again, Nipsey Hussle, if you recall, dies at 33. The whole thing was framed like the death of Jesus right around Easter season, represented with the crown of thorns. Kanye West wore the crown of thorns, did the Jesus thing for his Sunday ceremonies. He did the whole Christ imagery for the Rolling Stones cover when he did Coachella. Will Smith, O.J. Simpson, I mean, it's an interesting mix. Again, this was a video where Kendrick Lamar becomes O.J. Simpson, Kanye West. This is some kind of message. On the cover of this album, he has a crown of thorns. And he's, so I'm referencing this constant refrain to this Black Christ. And it's been referenced with Nipsey, with Kanye, with him. And even more recently, I've been pointing out instances of this. And it's not insignificant. We're talking about, when we say Christ, even with Damar Hamlin, we're talking about the ritualistic dying and resurrecting sun god, which is represented as Hiram Abiff within the Masonic context. So my point here, Kendrick Lamar gets an award for a song called The Heart Part 5, and I'll look into that more in the future here. Best Duo, Kim Petras and Sam Smith perform a song called Unholy, and this is probably going to be talked about a lot tomorrow because it's just more mainstream devil worship. I mean, what can you read into it? Demons, hell, woman in a cage, like a big cube dancing around the devil. Maybe it means something deeper. I'm not sure. I'll look into it. Going through some comments, Jake the A-hole says, I initially thought it was a cover story for the ISS or Satelloon coming down, but now I think it's a scripted psyop beginning to end. Yeah, there's a few media tie-ins. Let's go ahead and dig up some of these, because there are some things in here. And look, here's something else that I have to point out. The Westworld Season 3 intro, I believe, references what I call the meta-script. That we live in a very scripted reality. Sports, entertainment, politics, all of it. And our history is scripted. And season 3 begins with this message here. And this is the one that was released right after COVID was declared, and you can see the obvious corona symbol in it. You even see there's plenty here. It looks to be an impaled person on the World Trade Tower, which looks exactly like a syringe. And again, the syringe comes from the Greek word syrinx, which means pan, flute. Think pandemic, god of panic. But anyway, it was a panicdemic. It was an epidemic or a pandemic of I would say hypochondria. People were simply, it was a mind virus in many ways. But look here, this is from the intro. You see the corona symbol, and it says, "History has an author, a system." And this is referring to, I would say, the big script. And they had to initiate the system. The West world's going to burn down because they're becoming sentient. It says, "History has an author and a system, but there is, quote, someone they haven't accounted for, you." And my take on it is that all of this move towards censoring the internet lockdowns. In fact, there was a lockdown or a shutdown in Italy yesterday. It's to prepare us for the internet version of a pandemic. And you are the super spreader. You are the mind virus super spreader. And if you're not compelled to wear a mind mask, you're going to constantly reinfect people or infect people who are susceptible to mind viruses. The same argument that they used for the healthy super spreader needing to stay home because they can spread it to people with weak immune systems is being used for locking down your mind because people with weak mental immune systems, the mind aids that they've pretty much given the masses really through conditioning and training where they don't have an immune system. They need an injectable one. This is not going to be a real vax, but it's a mental vax. And of course, if you're not taking their MSM mind vax, well then of course you're a mind virus super spreader. Okay, going through some other notes here. Yes, they did shoot it down, and I find the whole thing very questionable. Now, APOC Shaker in our Discord server pointed this out, and this is one of the reasons why I think that we're looking at something more than just an accidental Sataloon CubeSat dipping too low. Before they even blew it up, he said, "Hey, look, it's starting to look like predictive programming in the movie Nope." You know, the movie Nope, Jordan Peele, about the UFO, the flying saucer thing. Well, at the end, it unfolds in this way, and it looks like a big Cthulhu-like thing in the sky, or a deflated opening, like a balloon blowing up. But as it falls to Earth, it actually kind of looked like something right out of the movie Nope. If you haven't seen Nope, it's about pretty much a UFO flying saucer thing. Not much more I can add there without giving you spoilers, but it does seem like there's some predictive programming here, and this is how it works. Last year, Moonfall was out, and I pointed out Moonfall is preparing us for space junk. Moonfall is preparing the masses to accept things falling from space with regularity, and then we'll have to have space wars or space force defending us, like a new air defense, but it deals with satellites, and everyone's going to have it. Like whatever they're coming up with, they've been preparing us for it with many shows I can mention. But Moonfall in particular, which coincidentally happens to have a savior who's a scientist, who looks like the savior in the movie Don't Look Up, which also has connotations to Nope, which if you look at the cover of the movie Nope, they're told don't look up, because if you look at it, I'm talking about the UFO thing, it'll basically suck you up through its eye. So the don't look up connection is here. We're talking about the movie Moonfall having the protagonist who happens to be 33 looking exactly like the character Leonardo DiCaprio plays in Don't Look Up. There's a connection here. But anyway, Nope. In fact, someone has pointed out that you can connect the names of this director's movies, and there may be something in this. There's Get Out. There's Us, which some think might refer to the U.S. There's probably a deeper meaning here. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I'm pointing out that there is some kind of Nope connection to this balloon thing. The number 55 is something that's been showing up very much lately. I want to point this out really quick. It has to do with this Tyree Nichols, which has a lot of connections to MLK in 1968. They had the congregation after his funeral go to the place where MLK gave his speech about I've been to the mountaintop, which was 55 years ago. And this was after these protesters already shut down I-55. And I kind of saw this as maybe there's some kind of a connection here. And then the new Colin Kaepernick movie comes out, this new series called Killing County. And Killing County, if you look at the first, and I watched the first two episodes, it's pretty bad. It's basically like Sandy Hook level narrative building with all the victims telling their stories. It's just one-sided propaganda, agitprop. But I study this stuff, and when you watch the trailer, it opens up with this mention of these 55 officers. So the number 55 is associated with Colin Kaepernick's new film. It's associated with, here we go, this is again part of this documentary. I-55, and 55 years since MLK's assassination, and they have compared him to MLK. They've compared him to Rodney King. I mean, these psyops, I mean, one of the reasons why I'm comfortable calling them fake is that they are so obviously scripted. They're tied into every other little story. By the way, we're on the weekend before the Super Bowl, and this should be an interesting one. It's Super Bowl number 57. And there's a lot of mention, a lot of talk right now about this one in particular among those of us who are looking at the Metascript view. It happens to be Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And there's a lot of predictive programming pointing at some kind of a nuke, some kind of, like, here's an example of the predictive programming that people are pointing out. Here's Kendrick Lamar, and that whole thing was fake, with the guy named Neil standing. He's got a 33 on his back. Everybody else is kneeling. The whole thing was a ritual top to bottom. 3 days later, it comes to life. We've gone through this ad nauseum, but if you look at his phone, someone pointed this out. On his phone, it says 1032, but it also has the symbol for, it looks like, radiation, nuclear disaster. And the 1032 timestamp is the same one that Elon Musk has when he's wearing his Devil's Avenger costume. Again, not quite sure what that means. Nukes, Musk, but there's something up. Continuing, 3 of the officers that were involved were members of Omega Psi Phi, and their membership was revoked. Quote, the brutality shown in the video violated our moral sensibilities and transgressed our fraternal and established code of conduct, the organization said. Now, the reason why I think this is notable, that 3 of the officers were kicked out of their fraternity, is that this is the same fraternity that the family of Tyree Nichols hired, what's his name? Benjamin Crump. I always call him Forrest Crump. I don't want to confuse anybody. Benjamin Crump is there for every single psyop where somebody says, I can't breathe. Whether it's Astro World, George Floyd, the fire in the Bronx. He's at every one of these events. Well, he's representing this family, and he happens to be a member of this fraternity. Probably just a coincidence. But one other example, one other point I wanted to make about it is that these would be 3 kicked out of the lodge, 3 kicked out of their club. In the killing of Hiram Abiff, in this death resurrection ritual, which we saw partly played out in front of the public for 9 minutes at the football game with DeMar, it was the same thing you saw for nearly 9 minutes with George Floyd. Same right. But there's this element in here where the martyr of the story is wounded 3 times by 3, quote, unworthy craftsmen. They're trying to steal a secret because they weren't able to get in. They were kicked out of the club. And I think that the 3 being kicked out of this club may correlate with the 3 ruffians who kill Hiram Abiff. There's been a lot of predictive programming for balloons in a few other places that have come out, like the new Time magazine on the back has a bunch of red balloons descending. And the cover says, Zip It, the power of saying less, which I think has some kind of censorship connotations. A couple of other things. The name Tyree Nichols. is very significant for a couple of reasons. It has Masonic implications, but also you have this. You have from the, this is again Wikipedia, but uh, Tyrian purple, also known as Phoenician purple. The name refers to Tyre, Lebanon. It's secreted by several species of predatory sea snails. Someone had pointed this out and how the entire funeral was draped in purple. And I think this was the case. We've noticed this before with this use of the color, but the name has some very special significance. And I even think that Trayvon Martin, the name Trayvon, Trey, there may be some other connection here. I've been mapping it out, and that's what I'm suggesting. These are all story characters. If you didn't know, Trayvon Martin was the catalyst for kicking off the entire BLM movement. If you're looking at the screen here, you can see what I was referencing. The 55 officers, Tyre protest shut down I-55, 55th anniversary of MLK's speech. And by the way, that was the last speech he gave before he was assassinated. Whether or not you believe that's real, just worth pointing that out. Going through your comments, Kevin Mooring says, Hurt is this year's Super Bowl script. What's with all the heart stuff and the CPR stuff that's being pushed by DeMar? And it all ties in with the anti-vaxxers and their thing about the heart. It just seems like something's up, and we're really close to Valentine's Day. And of course, with Valentine's Day, you have what? The heart and the arrow. And this entire last year, the entire summer, and even fall, it was all about the broken arrow of Artemis, the Artemis mission with the crack in it. And broken arrow is the code for nuclear disaster or accident. In fact, there were, according to the U.S. Department of Defense, 32 broken arrow incidents from 1950 to 1980. We're waiting on number 33, apparently. Broken arrow. Damar Hamlin partnered with the American Heart Association. Make of this what you will. I mean, the fact is, he's been doing the heart sign forever, the number 3 forever. It's all symbolism at this point. Here's another example of symbolism in plain sight. Last year on 2/2, you had actually it was on 2021. The Starship SN8 is the one that fell to Earth on that day. And at the time I said this has got to be a ritual. And when it blew up, it happened to look like a mushroom cloud, like a little nuclear bomb. However, the name is pretty obvious if you think about it. SN8. Now at the time, I noticed that there was a 42 spray painted on one of its engines, which is an obvious reference. Well, it turns out SN8 is most likely, if you ask me, an anagram for S8N or Satan. And that's a very significant day. It's the 33rd day of the year. And that was the day Jeff Bezos stepped down as CEO of Amazon. And why is this significant? This is significant because Bezos is Nimrod, the builder of the Tower of Babel. It's very deep in his meta-scripted character. But it's very significant that he launched on the anniversary of Apollo 11 at 9:11 a.m. I believe this all ties in, again, Apollo and 9/11. I think this connects to Apollyon from Revelations 9:11. I've been making some interesting connections here, which I will be delving deeper into that later. I'm just trying to catch everybody up on where we are. For example, the funeral for this Tyree Nichols included people from a number of other psyops. Breonna Taylor's the daughter was there, the brother of George Floyd, and someone found that the name Floyd is actually derived from a word meaning flood, which is interesting. Son of Eric Garner, the original I Can't Breathe started with him, and then Kamala Harris was there. And I don't think it's quite over yet. This entire event, this last PSYOP was building towards something. We were doing a deeper breakdown of the symbolism with that one, but for the most part, I wanted to point out one other thing. Day one, I said, you're going to see how they're going to connect him to these other events, and I put some of them together, like Emmett Till, Rodney King. And look, they all have the same code. like the name King, the fact he was hit 33 times for 1 minute 19 seconds, all code. But I noticed that one of the pictures they put of this latest martyr was very George Floyd looking in the facial hair and the hat and the angle of the photo. It looked like one of the iconic photos. And I put this together the day it happened. Then a few days later, TMZ put those together for their thumbnail to conflate the two. My point being, when you recognize that you're looking at propaganda, you can actually more or less, predict where they're going to go and how they're constructing these characters, which are all composites. They're very two-dimensional, by the way. This character is no exception. Supposedly a photographer, but I can't find any real evidence of it. All right, phones are open. I put the number on the screen. Kevin Morin says CIA Alex Hicks started this censorship script. Yeah, Alex Jones did some damage control on this one. What he did was suggested that what we're looking at was some kind of EMP device because they use satellites for spying. If it was a spy thing, it would be on an orbiting satellite. Right. Now, I'm not saying that the Earth isn't a CGI ball, like many believe, but the existence of orbiting satellites, I think they're ridiculous, the whole concept. Unnecessary. Provably so. This latest event with this thing shows you that you're looking at something that it makes a lot more sense. Okay, let me go through some of the recent headlines. Kendrick Lamar, The Heart Part 5. Again, that's part of this ongoing narrative. We'll see more about this as it moves along. I'm not going to spend time talking about my stalkers, but, and I'm not saying I overdid it, but one particular stalker got into my DMs for no reason after spamming a chat, and I had just finished filing some complaints against the person I'm suing, a long time stalker, and I just happened to have the browser window open for IC3, and I already warned him before. I'm like, look, I know your laws in California on interstate stalking, cyber harassment, and you're walking a fine line, and some people said I went too far, but maybe I did, but I don't have time to sue people anymore, and if someone's intent on spreading lies and misinformation about you and defaming your character, you can't just ignore it. And I don't know, like I said, maybe it was just late at night, I wasn't thinking, but I figured, well, maybe this guy is crazy. Legitimately crazy. I'm talking about my newest stalker, I'm not going to name, but this person is convinced that I'm a woman in disguise and some kind of Israeli intelligence agent, like a Jewish woman spy. It's the weirdest thing. I'm like, this guy's got to be crazy. He's got to be insane. There's no way you can believe that. It's just not possible. So I did, in fact, report him to, I figured, his superiors at the FBI. Now, whether they do anything with it or not, I don't really care. I just needed to make sure that he knows he's on notice and all his friends know that, I really don't care for stalkers. I've been dealing with them for years, and I know how to handle them. And I'm not going to let it distract this channel anymore. This latest lawsuit with Goldfinch has just taken up almost this entire month. And by the way, I'm in touch with a process server, and the process server informed me that they will have a proof of service for me tomorrow afternoon. That would be Monday the 7th. I just have to get the actual payment for the service to them. Again, this is the third party that will be serving Google, and then they're going to be sending me a proof of service via email that night. And if you want to pitch in on that, feel free. I put a link below. I appreciate everyone who helped me push this thing over the finish line, which I have. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the lawsuit has been filed, and it's public information. You'll be able to read it. And essentially what I've done is I have made the case that YouTube has been complicit in trademark theft and identity theft, in committing actual felonies against me. And I have a valid reason to sue them over this. And I'm going to use this lawsuit as a platform to bring about criminal charges against them. Anyway, I pretty much completed the process. One final step is getting them served. And there's no escape for Goldfinch on this. There's no way out. There's no bargaining. There's no settlement because he hacked Kickstarter, which gave him access to bank information. He hacked a website and he vandalized it. But with basically, I would call defamation. He doxed me, defamation, and the fact that he hacked it is what I'm bringing up here because Kickstarter is working with law enforcement. He committed a crime. Right there in plain sight, I have the evidence, and that was included in my lawsuit, which is against him and YouTube. That's moving along swimmingly. Now, the other lawsuit, if you're wondering which one I was referring to, the countersuit from the stalker that I sued, this is the guy who registered a clip art as his own, even though it's free, and he sued me for using it. And the judge awarded him $0 for emotional pain, $0 for supposed emotional distress. So he admitted that the memes hurt. He admitted that the memes caused him anxiety and pain, but he didn't get any money for it. He couldn't prove it. I'm like, show me the receipts. I want to see the receipts for where you got your hurt feelings treated, your traumatic emotional injury. There weren't any. But he did get awarded $53,000 for trademark violations. And obviously, I am already dealing with the process of having this thing examined closer because the judgment didn't really involve any real discovery as far as did he even prove any of this stuff. Did he prove that I sold a bunch of coffee mugs with his dumb avatar? I mean, it's just such a joke. But if nothing else, he's been tied up with this for a couple of years, and that was kind of the point. And it's going to continue for another 2 or 3 years. In other words, I'm looking at this thing as a game. It is a game, a chess game. And they made it a game. All of my stalkers have made this into a game. It's not a life or death thing. It's not a crisis. I'm dealing with weird psychopathic criminals. But someone says, what if he's not a real person, a CIA face? Oh, he's a real person, but he is part of a group of people, I think, who knows? Who knows? My main thing is this is a long-term thing. As long as this channel's on and as long as Infinite Plane Society moves forward, we're going to have trolls. And if they want to ride along, if they want to get dragged behind us, fine. I don't mind. I don't mind dealing with libel and slander and whatever else they do because that's just goes with the territory. I do think that it's a little obsessive that I've been dealing with the same person, well, 2 people now, 4 years and 5 years. That's a lot of time. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you devoted 4 or 5 years to a TV show or a celebrity or an author you like or a radio show even? I mean, people listen to Limbaugh or sometimes you hear these people, they've listened to some guy for 20 years, but to hate listen. But, my thing is this. They chose to go this route, and it's just not going to end anytime soon. Like you might actually be looking at, I look at these as long-term dysfunctional relationships, and by putting it into a 30-year framework, it takes away the stress. Like, for example, even though I'm closing in on Goldfinch, even though he may serve time, and I will be collecting for 40-plus stolen domains, the civil, and everything else, at no point is it over. Because I have an enemy for life now. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm robbing his future. I'm going to destroy his reputation. He's going to be publicly humiliated and burned at the stake. Someone like that doesn't get over it. I'm going to be dealing with enemies for life, and I've accepted it. And to be quite honest, it doesn't bother me. That's why I was kind of talking to these new trolls, and I'm like, do you really want to be involved with this? Because I have a pretty good system. I keep files. So those of you, like the one who I mentioned, my new stalker that I filed a report on, yeah, I'm going to have to keep files on him for life. I mean, what else can I do? You cannot let any of these go because what will happen is it'll just fester. It'll get worse. You just have to deal with it. You just have to track them. And I do. I keep track through a couple of sites Like I get emails, oh, so and so moved to Arizona. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But there are many stalkers that have chased after this channel, and they're all connected. These aren't just random people. One of them is part of the White House Communications Agency, provably. One of them is. Another one is connected to NOAA. Another one was part of an IT company, and he was the top conspiracy Redditor. You know, you go to reddit.com/conspiracy. The top Redditor for years was one of our stalkers, and I found out who he was one night. He slipped up. He clicked a URL grabber. And, you know, back then, that was a couple of years ago, I had a course on counter stalking, on how to dox cyber stalkers, and we had a pretty good record. And I'm not going to drop any hints here, but I have some new ones. I had one of look, they come in packs. I'm watching this show called it's on MGM. It's called From, and it's kind of this vampire thing, but they show up in packs, and they're all kind of slow, and they just kind of walk. You got to get in the house, and these trolls come in packs. So I get one troll here, and then three others jump on. One of them called last night, or the last time I was live. The second caller, the one that was euphemizing about Jews, he couldn't just say it. Yeah, he was one of them. They come in groups. And I look into these individuals on Twitter, I find their pages, and they act like they're big, scary internet Nazis because they're anonymous. And they're like, oh, we found you and you're a Jew, which I'm not. It's the weirdest thing. If you don't know about internet Nazis, you're missing out. It's weirder than Q. And Q went away. Q is dead. The QAnoners, the MAGAs, they're not really a thing anymore. I don't think you can resurrect that. But these internet neo-Nazis are a bunch of clowns. It's like if the only thing you have in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And they're like, oh, you don't agree with me? Then you're a Jew. But it's not just Jew. They call me a... Anyway, I don't want to get too far into this thing. I'm just saying, this one was acting like he was some kind of big, bad internet Nazi troll. And I went to his Twitter account, and he had a Cash App. You know, I could donate to him if I wanted to support his behavior, if I wanted to enable more of it. And I click his Cash App, and I'm like, okay, there's his name. Okay, there's his user handle, search. Okay, cool. Rapper, Oklahoma, cool, interesting history, jail, drugs, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, then I go back to him because he was the one who was calling me a chick on Twitter. Now, I don't get offended. I really could care less. He's calling me a chick. Like, I don't know if that's supposed to be very offensive, but anyway, when I looked into him, the only picture I found of him was a picture where, you know, he looked a little, not all that defined as far as his physique, and his hair was a little over his face. And I'm just saying, it didn't look definitively masculine. There was no MAGA beard. He didn't look like he was going to goose step. He didn't look like a stormtrooper for Hitler. He didn't look like a Nazi. He looked more like Kurt Cobain, like some kind of grunge guy. And I tweeted him back, and I'm like, okay, you're calling me a girl, and here you are, you know, dressed in a very, I would say, non-binary way. And that kind of shut him up. But my point is, I'm just saying that these neo-Nazi trolls have a fixation on me. And there's another one. I didn't want to get into this, but I'm going to have to for a minute here because Goyim TV used to troll us quite heavily. They used to call all the time. And Goyim TV is kind of like the WHO. You know how they want to like do a purity test on everybody? Check your vax status. Everybody has to be vaxxed. We're going to track everybody who's not vaxxed and pure. Goyim TV does the same thing, only it's about your heritage. They want to make sure that you're sufficiently white, or they're going to troll your chat. I mean, these are the same guys who went on the bridge after Ye went viral, and they draped the sign over freeways in LA that said Ye was right. So if you don't know who they are, that's who they are. The Ye was right guys. Well, more recently, the leader of Goyim TV, he goes by Handsome Truth, he's adopted this Alex Stein type of cringe persona. And what's pretty bad about this, though, is the best way to describe it, he's an anti-Semite version of Alex Stein. Handsome truth. It's a cringe persona trolling city council meetings, and that's fine. It's not a crime if you're offensive. It's not a crime if you're not that funny. It doesn't. I don't care. But here's the weird part. He went online and he started speaking to a couple of minors. And if you look here and watch these Hitler fanboys call in and defend this guy. So he's talking to a couple of children. They look like kids here. And he used vulgar pornographic language. This is the guy from Go MTV. He asked intimate questions that can only be described as grooming. I mean, legally speaking, and this is from Reno versus ACLU 521 US 844. The Supreme Court ruled, quote, transmitting obscenity and other stuff via internet or other means is illegal under federal law for adults and juveniles. I was looking into it, and some of the things that he says here, because he's talking about snorting cocaine off of male genitalia. He's talking about things like to the kids. He's asking about their sex lives, asking them if they've had full surgery, if they're buying it. I mean, he's trolling because he's playing a character. But what I'm saying here is when he's asking a minor, he asks a minor if he has an STD, and the minor says, "I'm only 17." Now again, I can't defend this. I'm pretty sure his followers will. I'll play a few seconds of it, but I'm not going to play any of the stuff that I consider to be criminal.
early 2002. So it was a terrible surgery. So it's really. Have you looked at any of the surgeries? And they're kind of graphic. I have. You have? Yeah. So.
I've seen on TikTok. That's about it.
Anyway, he's talking to children about surgeries that involve things, and I'm just suggesting here that if he didn't get a waiver from their parents, this is worse than, I don't know, some of the stuff we've seen at the libraries. Going through some comments, Kevin Mooring says, Tim is one of those people that see and speak the truth, and they hate those people. They make your life hard. Yeah, they try to hit you in the pocketbook. But look, I spent yesterday, and I should have been here, but I spent yesterday troll hunting. I actually have 7 on my list here that were basically kind of stalking me all at once. I was like, what is it? Then I looked up, and I think I figured it out because I was driving earlier tonight on an errand, and I saw a car going the wrong way in the Taco Bell drive-thru, which you couldn't possibly do if you were right in the head. Like, there's just no way that you could get into that particular drive-thru in that way. I was like, how did he even do that? I need a crane to extract him. But I'm like, okay, it's a full moon. I've noticed this before. The full moon brings out the crazy. It brings out the crazy trolls as well. A grip of them. And these are all documented, like certifiable, I mean, when I say crazy. Delusional. And that's fine. I have nothing against the neurodivergent. Just, don't stalk me. Okay, moving forward, this is a Simpsons episode that involves a satellite that's actually just on a balloon. And many of you have already seen these. These are just examples of satelloons being launched into space. Again, my contention is there's nothing that can be accomplished by an orbiting satellite that couldn't be accomplished by a dangling satellite. Satelloons. Going through comments. Angle of Elevation says, ex-convicts gang of stupid stalking. Well, we did a documentary about many of the informants among the Flat Earth Conference groups. Like, you have these Flat Earth conferences and you find out that these are organized by individuals with intelligence agencies connections, mainstream media connections. They're totally connected to Disney, to Jimmy Kimmel. And then you find that the people who are speaking to the media are kind of shady. I mean, look, it's not guilt by association to point out the fact that the organizer of the last Flat Earth Conference was not only doing documentaries with the guys in jail for sex trafficking, but they had a bunch of offenders working for them. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, Call? You got a slight echo in the background. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, Yes. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, loud and clear. Okay, gotcha.
Is that better?
Yes, yes. And what's your
Okay.
take on the moon? I'm sorry, the balloon thing. Do you think this is a
Yeah,
significant?
I was actually, hold on one second. So, I'm like, okay, you're gonna have to work with me just a little bit because I'm trying to piece this together as I go. But I heard you talking about this whole thing, right? And I always think back to things that go on with NASA and all of these very occult-like symbols within Hollywood and movies and film and all over the Grammys and everything. And I thought back to the time that like Jeff Bezos uh, launched, and Richard Branson both like launched up their sort of uh, penis and vagina shaped rockets and did their whole fertility sex call like whatever
You're not
stuff.
exaggerating. Saturday Night Live even played on that, and that's exactly it. Virgin Galactic is the goddess, and Jeff Bezos' company has been ridiculed for that. And yeah, that's absolutely what we're looking at there.
Right. Okay. So now check this out. Now I'm just piecing this together because I'm coming across this information as I'm listening to you. Right. And I came across this thing. Okay. So I'm piecing together like what's going on in the news. Right. Okay. We have the Chinese space balloon, which is so bizarre. Which I got to hand it to these guys because their imagination it's keeping me on the edge of my chair. They're good. They're really good.
They're masters
Uh,
of relentless back-to-back distraction for the TikTokified minds out there. It's like, okay, this psyop's expired. Let's just bring out another one.
I love it. Yeah, I love your take on it. Um, so anyway, so I was thinking, and I was thinking like, what else is in the news right now? And what's one of the things that there's many things in the news as we cover, but like or you cover, the notion of eggs and the price of eggs, right? And I couldn't help but thinking. I took a little break last night, and I went outside underneath the snow moon. I took a look up at the moon. I couldn't help thinking of the space balloon, but then I was also thinking of the egg shape, right? And how all cultures, it seems like all cultures or most cultures, and I'm not well versed on this, but I feel as though there's definitely some sort of mythos about the cosmic egg, right? There's definitely like a story that's to be told, and there's like I always think of like in the realm of like magic and superstition, which is the realm that like NASA and these space what they're the space religion, space gods are trying to play. And I came across this notion of Ishtar, the star of Ishtar for Easter, and I'm coming across this information uh, about this cosmic egg, and I'm reading on this. Um, so I just,
No, you're on something here. Look, listen, this is interesting to me. You nailed it there. There's a fascinating connection you made with the balloon and the egg shape and the cosmic
yes,
egg thing. But what's more, we're in the year of the rabbit. And at the beginning of the year, at the Chinese New Year, for the lunar year of the rabbit, again, lunar year, they had the shooting, and someone pointed out that in China they have the moon rabbit. Like the man in the moon over there, they refer to it as a rabbit. And China is about to go shoot a rocket to the moon. And they already have a probe on the moon called the Jade Rabbit. And what's associated with eggs on Ishtar, Easter, the rabbit, the Easter rabbit. There's something here, I think, between.
I think there is, and it's really fascinating what you pull up, And so just to like share what I'm like looking at right now. So I'm putting all this together as I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking about like Ishtar, and so I pull up a little Ishtar on the internet, and I'm looking at these 8-pointed star of Ishtar, and then I'm also looking side by side of Space Delta 18. If you pull up Space Delta 18, like their logo, it's a very like mythological like sort of picture, the triangle, but it's got the 8-pointed star on it. And I think there's a connection there between like eggs, Ishtar, the 8-pointed star, what's going on. There seems to be the shortage on eggs or the influx of the price of eggs. Uh,
Right, yes,
I,
yes. I think these are valid connections between Easter Ishtar, the eggs, and all the hype about eggs and them being burned. I mean, like those big fires that they're showing. Whenever I see that, that's usually to me it makes me think of burnt offering, sacrifice, some kind
Yeah,
of offering.
sacrifice. And there's something with sacrifice. Oh my God, I have to pull this up. I'm just going to read something real quick that I'm reading
And
right now.
a couple in 2019, if you remember, Notre Dame burned during Holy Week, and at the time I said, look, that's another reference to Ishtar. Our Lady, Notre Dame, that's the Lady Ishtar, same goddess. And when that temple burned, I was like, that's got to be some kind of an immolation rite. And I think we may be seeing something here with the eggs. But yeah, please go on.
Yeah, no, I have to get back. Yeah, like I was just reading something on that too about the eggs, and there's like a sacrifice of like Ishtar, but there's another name for uh, I just lost all my tabs. I don't know where that went. But so this is what I'm reading right now, though. I'll get back to what I was just talking about. But okay, the egg, the Monday egg is a well-recognized symbol of the world. The ancient pagans, in almost every part of the globe, here we want to, the eggs were wont to symbolize the world. Hence, this symbol is introduced into the cosmogony of nearly all nations, and there are few persons, even among those who have not made mythology their study, to whom the Monday egg is not perfectly familiar. This is the egg is a symbol not only of the resurrection but also of the world rescued from destruction by the Noah Ark. The lunette or horizontal crescent being a symbol of the Great Father, represented by Noah the egg and lunette symbol, which was the hieroglyphic of the god Lunus at Heliopolis, symbol of the world proceeding from the Great Father. I apologize about my
No, no, this is great info. I mean,
reading.
you can find like Ishtar becomes pregnant on Easter, and then it ties into the birth of the sun god. Like this is syncretism at its finest because Virgin Galactic, which you mentioned, they have that's Ishtar. It's the same goddess, however they represent it, and it's all this fertility, right? And of course, egg is an obvious fertility symbol.
Right. So anyway, so when you ask me what I'm thinking about the Chinese balloon, that's what's been coming to mind lately. I'll let you kind of piece that out together. I just feel like there's something there. There's a connection. It's like I'm just trying to follow this little trail.
Yeah, great information there, and connecting the balloon to the egg makes perfect sense. It even looks lunar, but the egg shape there is definitely very, very relevant here as we, approach whatever is going to happen next. I mean, I'm looking at Valentine's Day as the next big thing, but the eggs is showing up. It's creeping on this narrative with whatever that's going to be. Anyway, appreciate the call very much. Call back anytime.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
All right, phones are open, numbers on the screen. I even think there's a strong connection to be made between the ISS and Isis, because you're talking about the goddess of the night sky. You'll see it represented with the blue robe with the stars on it. That's the night sky, the canopy of the sky. And the ISS, similar, ISIS, ISS, is a night sky castle or temple in the night sky. And to me, I'm looking at that as more or less the corresponding temple to the obelisk, which is the obvious male symbol. And they fly up to the space, and space is the womb of the goddess, where the sun god emerges in the morning. He's delivered from the womb of Isis, which is the night. They call him the child of darkness. But this sun worship symbolism is all over what we're looking at here. Moonfall was released on 2/4. I went and I watched it in the theater. And it is all predictive programming for the sky falling, directed by Roland Emmerich, who directed Independence Day, about alien invasion, but more importantly, predictive programming for 9/11. So I think Moonfall could be predictive programming for, well, something falling. Infinite Plane Radio.
Cam,
Hey, what's up, caller? How are you tonight?
hey, it's Quincy.
Oh, Quincy, pilot. Hey, I remember last time we spoke, you were talking about high altitude balloons, among other things. But anyway, what's your take on this balloon situation?
You know, You know, I think it's a distraction. I think it could possibly be used as a false flag or a prelude to something with China.
Yeah, well,
Oh
yeah,
well,
sure, sure.
because look, we did shoot it down, right? So supposedly, so like, could this whole thing be staged for some provocation to a war? Maybe.
I think so. I think it's believable as a scenario that these because these could be used as a delivery mechanism for all sorts of things, not to mention the
All sorts of things,
general
right?
mayhem.
And so it's just the idea that that no matter what the cyber war is, you know, what are we being led to what the official story is, and do we even know the official story?
The official story,
So
yeah, it's in flux. I find it interesting, though, uh, the timing of one, the power going out in Italy. No, I mean the internet going down, because there's some kind of EMP preparation I see in a lot of the predictive programming. But with this in particular, at least it introduces the Sataloon to people that didn't know.
yeah. It's funny because I just was on uh, last week. Me and one of the other pilots were just talking about. I'm telling them about. Hey, I don't think satellites exist. I'm telling them that they're all balloons. And now this week, I say, so do satellites exist or are they balloons, sir? He says, well, they're both. I'm like,
Right.
okay, yeah, but yet you're still wearing a mask, sir. You know what? It seems to me that if you fall for one psyop, maybe you'll fall for them all. Or how awake do people need to be before they understand that everything is in your brain? Like, it's really a cyborg of the mind, and the man with the strongest mind wins.
100%. And you're right about how people will fall for every psyop, because I think if you've accepted one, it means you've accepted the premise that you can trust the news, at least on the
Right.
factuals, the facts as they state them. And if you accept that premise, then it doesn't matter where you go with it, who you follow, you've already taken the bait. And I don't take the bait on any of this stuff, but the public will. The ones who accepted the lockdown and wear the masks will accept climate lockdowns without any resistance.
Climate lockdown, digital ID, you know, um, hey, don't pay me in cash, pay me in Zelle, Venmo, just we really, I heard someone wise say, tyranny disguised as being convenient.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And what has it done? I mean, now you have every new entrepreneur, it has everything tracked, and it seems to me also that in the last few years, the public has just been conditioned overall to just adapt to new conditions, and I think it's gearing us towards centralized distribution of everything. Maybe
Hey,
Amazon, but
hey, Tim. Before I leave, can I just say, I think I understand a flat uh uh key point here.
yeah, please go ahead.
I think that, okay, the stars are electric. The sun, moon, and stars are electric because every light, right? Every light that we use for light is electric. Why? Because it's like clean light. So the idea of light itself has to be electric. And there's times that when I'm flying at nighttime and I see a plane, I say, is that a plane or is that a light? And I know that the lights on the plane are electric. So why not the sun, moon, and stars, or everything that we use for light, Jim?
Right. That's fascinating. I mean, when I look at them, I would agree with that. They don't look like gas giants to me, and
Right.
obviously, to me the public's reality compromised. I don't know if you caught this, but a few months ago, some astronomer with a $10 billion satellite played a little joke. He showed a picture of a piece of salami in
Oh,
space.
I seen that. Yeah,
Every
exactly.
everybody fell for it.
Everybody, yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
And that alone says that they are all compromised, their reality is compromised, and they are what I'd call tainted witnesses. Meaning, you can't trust them when they say they've seen a satellite or they've seen the curve, because
Right.
their cognitive bias replaces any real perception. Um, but I understand where they're coming from. I understand the conditioning, I guess.
Well, Tim, it's known now. I'm at the airport now. People know me as the flat Earth pilot now. Like it's known now, and now I have great points and great points of conversation, and it's like I have good questions like, hey, pilots, where's the curve that we need to adjust for? You don't adjust for it. It's like if you don't adjust for it, could the curve not be there? It's like these guys try to always play both sides, and then once they understand that they've been duped, it's hard to admit. You know what? I've been duped. I would rather just keep wearing a mask and go along than admit. You know what? I've been had. But
Yes.
that's man how you learn. You learn by trying to admit what you don't know.
Exactly. The beginning of wisdom is calling things by the right name and admitting that you know nothing at some point. And I think that the TV or the televised, this smartphone screen, the ubiquitous screen is the mind mask. And that's what most people put on. It's like a filter. And they will go with the official explanation over anything that contradicts it. And for me, I'm like, just show me the curve, and I'll stop bringing this up.
Show me the curve, and I'll stop. And so many pilots, they swear they've seen it. I'm telling you, it's like they swear they've seen it, but it's like they can't show me a picture of it. But yeah, they swore they've seen it. And it's just beyond the mind. It's really beyond the mind. And then like I have good points like all the maps that we use to fly with are flat. I mean the idea that east to west are not straight lines. I mean these guys really don't understand that because they really fly over a flat world. It's like, and then you have the worst ones that I think that it makes no difference at all. And it's like, hey, if the powers that be are lying about that, what else are they lying about?
Yeah, exactly. And to me, that's their lack of imagination. Because if it's fake, if the moon landing's fake, and the Russians didn't call it out, then they're colluding. Then what's really with all these wars and contentions between nations if they all agree to fake us out on some higher level? But
it's like we pretend like we're against each other, but look on the ideas that we come together as one. COVID,
right.
Space, climate change. At some point, hey, the world is trying to collude against the people on every single level.
That's when I use the word monolithic to describe media, because on the big picture, we can all fall under it. You can be a Muslim, Christian, an atheist, but as long as you believe in space, you're still in the monolithic worldview that unites everybody, the new universal faith. And really quick here, because you're a pilot, maybe you can point. I can look out my window, and I can see a mountain range that's 120 miles away, and I can see near sunset. I can see clouds behind those mountains. And the clouds that I can see are above the horizon, but they're not tilted away. They're not curving down over the horizon. Like
No.
isn't that strange? Like, shouldn't if the world was a ball and the atmosphere and the earth are curved as they say, shouldn't those clouds 100 plus miles away be bent over the horizon? They should.
They should be bent over they should be bent. The flight path should curve, and you know what pilots tell me? They sound just like people that don't fly. Well, the world's just so big. Like, do you not understand? If you kept going, at what point are we upside down?
Oh, the world's so big you can't see the curve, but you can see a rowboat go over the curve. Suppose.
Yeah, the world's so big you can't see the curve, but there is one. You don't have to equate for it, but there is one. You know, or a spin. If the Earth spins, how do you fly a plane at one way? If the Earth has to spin a certain way, they tell me, well, even though the Earth is spinning, there's no need to correct for it. Okay, so the Earth spins, we don't correct for it. There's a curve, we don't correct for it. Maybe there is no curve, and maybe there is no spin, which is why we don't correct for it.
Yeah, I came up with this term. I call them low information believers, where they believe it because it's mainstream, but they don't actually have all the information to know it's true. For example, 90% of the people I talk to about this, I ask them what shapes the solar system, and they think it's like an atom, like the planets go above and below and around. But no, the solar system is flat, and that is new information to the people who believe in the solar system. But that's typical. Anyway, hey Quincy, appreciate the call very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Tim. It's been good. You're doing a great job, man. And I will talk to you soon, sir.
Wonderful. Yeah, call anytime. We'll talk again. All right, everyone. That's Quincy, pilot, and has made a lot of interesting observations. And I'm not saying that the Earth isn't a CGI ball. I'm just saying, show me the proof that it is. The burden of proof has been shifted on all major issues. You can no longer have faith in what your leadership says or what the screen says. I mean, you can, but you should recognize that it is faith. And faith and knowledge are faith is good in religion, but faith in media, it's misplaced. Faith in a liar, trusting a liar, wrong, bad idea. Trust, but verify. And we've tried to verify, and we haven't found anything to corroborate with any of their real interesting stories. Continuing, this balloon thing's been the main talk. Here's a little throwback, proof that the Kyle Rittenhouse trial was fake. This is a scene, and I use that word advisedly, where one of the actors in the background, his foot literally goes through the floor. And this is the type of green screen glitch you would expect to see on the ISS, where their heads go through the ceiling. Or I have a really good one, a recent one, where a cord from a microphone goes through an astronaut's hand multiple times. Whatever your opinion on the curve of the Earth, you cannot be a sane person and tell me that the ISS is real, given the preponderance of evidence that it's a very poorly produced, sloppy science fiction flick.
Yes, and you'd only started working.
So here we are looking at the Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
14.
Look at this guy's foot.
I believe.
And there you go. An individual in the background, his left foot went through the floor. How fake is this? Like, they fake when they don't have to fake. Like, liars, I understand liars. Lying is a form of, it's a power thing, it's for manipulation and control. But lying for the sake of lying when the truth would be easier, yeah, that's pathological. And the mass media is a pathological liar, and this proves it. The fact that they will throw in a CGI security guard when they don't have to. All right, continuing. Kevin Mooring says all theater. Yeah, absolutely. The Kyle Rittenhouse story, if you ask me, it's based on Chris Kyle. It's just another manufactured hero character. Here's a video if you haven't seen it. Incredible HD, the moment when the Chinese surveillance balloon was shot down by a missile from an F-22 from Langley. I'm just curious as to who photographed, who filmed it. And I'm looking at this and it reminded me of the Challenger explosion. And I just want to point out that this time of year, there tends to be a lot of explosions in the sky. It was the last week of January. You had Challenger, you had the Kobe Bryant's explosion, you had, what was it, the Columbia? I think there's some deeper meaning to this. But I want to point out something else. The space shuttles are all fake, and we can prove this. Therefore, the Challenger explosion was obviously fake. And there's one video that gives it away more than anything, and it comes straight from NASA. Straight from NASA. One of their videos, which shows it's one of those tanks being dropped from the space shuttle into the ocean. But if you look carefully, you can find that it's not actually a tank being dropped into the ocean. What you're really seeing is a balloon, a blimp, being elevating into the sky. It's just a simple optical illusion. And I have a video I'm going to play here. Again, this is the only video you would need. And there's a dead giveaway in this video. For one, this was at a time when they still used handheld cameras, and these handheld cameras were kind of shaky. It's from Endeavor. But then two, at the end of this little clip that I'm going to show you, there is a jet that flies right by this tank. And this jet has been whited out of the footage. I changed the contrast and you could see it. Turns out it's a blimp recovery jet. Infinite Plane Radio.
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry. I wanted to call back just to share the information that I wanted to share before.
Oh, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is what I came across in this regard to the Super Bowl. Okay, so the Philadelphia Eagles have played 666 games in the regular season and playoffs at home between October 3rd, 1920 and January 8th, 2023. They also played in 1,318 games in the regular season in the playoffs between 1920 and 2023. 1318 in regards to Revelation 1318. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. The number is 666. And this is back in regards to the earlier caller about the egg. There was also a news headline as well with the Philadelphia Eagles. Apparently, they had thrown eggs in their NFC Championship game against the 49ers. Eagles. It's very similar to egg.
Yeah, I see that here. Eagles fans were throwing eggs at 49ers fans.
Yes.
Fascinating. That was last Sunday.
Yes. And then I was also thinking about balloon. This is the information came around. Balloon, ball, and I always think about like how they love ball. The god that they like to whatever.
Yeah, ball, the god of the earth.
Balloon, the balloon being like a round egg, and un. Actually, there's a translation of un and from the Bible. Not that like I'm not a Bible affirmist or denier or whatever. It is, but in the Bible, un translates into an egg.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't catch that. Now, did I lose? Okay, the call just dropped. If you want to call back, that's cool. That is very good information. And here's another piece. And because we talk about the ball games, and I call it ball worship. Even the globe is ball basically, and it's big ball Earth, and these words and names that have this deeper meaning. It's all intentional. And I was looking at the word devil and diabolos. And I think it's interesting here that the word diabolos, if you look at the etymology, it means throw across. Dia is across, balo, throw across. And so it's kind of like there's something interesting in that word, how it correlates to all these sports, which is definitely ball worship, earth worship. Okay, now, if you're looking at the screen, this is proof that the space shuttles are all fake. Now, this is an optical illusion, and it's so poorly done, but they got away with it back then because there weren't as many fact checkers and skeptics like there are right now. Now, this is an optical illusion. You are supposed to believe that you are looking at a red tank from the space shuttle falling into the ocean. You're supposed to believe that you're looking at the tops of clouds, and that these clouds are covering the ocean where it's going to fall. You're supposed to believe that you're looking down a couple hundred miles. And here they are from within the space shuttle looking down as this tank falls to the ground. Now, my contention here is that they're in the space shuttle, but it's on the ground and they're recording the sky. And the tank that's supposedly dropping is actually levitating up because it's a helium balloon. It's just a blimp. This is a blimp. And this is an optical illusion. It's not a blimp above the ocean. It's a blimp beneath the clouds. And the sky is being passed off as the ocean. That's what I'm saying here. This is a total hoax. There's no way you're 200 miles up and this is a falling object and you're recording it with the handheld camera this clearly. Huge giveaway. Now, at the end of this video, which is from NASA, Endeavour's external tank falls away. Handheld camera footage of Space Shuttle Endeavour's external tank captured by the STS-134 crew. At the end of this clip, you see an airplane snatch it. This is a blimp, and the airplane has one of those rigs for recovering blimps. I'm going to pause it when the plane shows up, but right after that, and this thing is twisting and turning. And I've seen so many balloons because I live in Albuquerque where we have the International Balloon Fiesta. This is a balloon, and that's just my expert opinion. But what's even better is they move the camera as soon as the airplane shows up. There's the airplane on the right. Now, again, you might believe in outer space. You might believe in space shuttles. You might have cried for the Challenger astronauts. But this is evidence here that this is a blimp disguised as an external tank, and on the right is a plane recovering it. And they move the camera. Nothing suspicious about that. I'll play the last 30 seconds of this.
On the ground for a closer look to make sure to gather any data that they can from it, and in particular make sure that there aren't any indications of anything that might have happened that would have hurt Endeavour's heat shield on its climb into orbit.
Now there it is spinning around. Again, that is not the ocean below it, it's the sky above it. This is an optical illusion, and it's this is just so poorly done. And they don't do this anymore. They don't record the sky and pretend it's the ocean and bend it so it looks like the ball Earth. Now it's all CGI. But again, you're going to see here, an airplane comes to scoop it up, and this handheld camera immediately moves away. I'm watching this thing spin. I'm not believing I'm looking down at the Earth. I know I'm looking up because I'm not a dupe. And here comes the airplane. Oh, move the camera away. Wouldn't want anybody to see that. That's inconvenient. And there's some debris. There you have it. All the evidence you need. And here is again the recovery plane, case closed, on the space shuttles. And if these aren't real, nothing else is real. If Apollo 11 is fake, Apollo 12 is fake. It's a house of cards. It's all fake. Salty Siren says, real life Truman Show when the moon deflates and falls. Yeah, I was thinking about it. The Truman Show is about a character who wakes up to the fact that he's in a staged reality when one of the fake stars falls. And it's a satellite. It's a stage light. And it says Sirius. because it's like the star, or it's the stage light that represents the star Sirius. And that there are layers of significance to that. But this piece of stagery falling down to Earth, yeah, it could be a wake-up call. It could be a wake-up call if someone were to see this and actually really question it. By the way, I have a guarantee of being shipped within 24 hours on any of the hand-painted Valentine's Day cards. I'll post the link one more time. If you go to its Ko-Fi /Tim Osman /shop, I am selling private commissioned art, and the ones I have right now are based on Mid-Journey visions of penguins, and I also have a number of penguin Valentine's cards, and of course these will be shipped out on time for you to have them before that holiday. Got a tweet from D-Train, said Alex Jones was wrong. He says it's not spying, they have satellites for it, it's a giant EMP. That's what they do. The guard railers, the conspiracy theorists that are approved on the world stage, look, they're not being censored. The fact that Alex Jones is always in the news means he's not being censored. Their job is to take the regular news and make it scarier. And the ones who are looking for evidence are the ones who are saying maybe nothing's happening at all. Maybe it's fake. So, for example, mainstream news, it's a spy balloon. Alternative news, it's a scary EMP, it's going to kill us all. But if you go beyond the guardrailed approved conspiracy theory line, you get to our territory, which is, it's probably just fake CGI top to bottom. I have a video here of a Satelloon passing in front of the moon. Now what you're looking at here is basically what you saw the other day. It's a balloon at the it's a balloon with probably a CubeSat. Again, I think Starlink satellites are a bunch of balloons. The truth behind satellites. That's what's coming out of this. This is really, really good, or cringe. If you like cringe, you'll love this. This is Kamala Harris talking on the phone to an astronaut. These are always good. But this is the one where, again, maybe you don't believe me about the space shuttles. Maybe you give them the benefit of the doubt, and that was just a cloud shaped like a blimp recovery jet. But this is a cord from a microphone going through somebody's arm and hand repeatedly.
Change your view of Earth and your perception of who we are, who live on Earth?
Oh man, that's a great question, and I think it's something that we all share up here. You know, one of the unique perspectives that we have here is to see Earth in its entirety. You know, we orbit the Earth, we see 16 sunrises and sunsets every day, and
you know what's given away here more than anything? Let me just show you this. This shows you it's AVR. That the microphone isn't really there. Or maybe it is, and the cord is fake. But that cord is fake, like their necklaces are often fake. There's no way that cord can be there because it is going through his watch. I'm going to leave it where it is. It's sawing his hand off. Like if this was I don't know how you can explain it. I'm sorry. Microgravity pockets. That's what they said when that one cosmonaut was dropping screws and they were hitting the floor. All right, let's continue. This is a short clip from The Truman Show.
Cease transmission. Ceasing transmission.
You want another slice?
No, I'm okay.
What else is on?
Yeah, let's see what else.
Where's the TV guy?
Okay, well, this is the end of The Truman Show. If you didn't get it, what it's referring to when Truman leaves the show, the people who are watching are immediately, they go from being totally transfixed to, okay, what's next? The system cannot keep up with society's, what is it, an appetite for chaos, Is it a short attention span? Is it just fragmented? Not sure. Les Luther posted this: the Fugo balloon bomb of World War II, 33 feet in diameter, 33 pounds of explosives. We've been here before, in other words. Incendiary balloon bombs deployed by Japan against the United States. It looks like they were intended to start massive forest fires in the Pacific Northwest. It's all recycled. The news is green. And by that, I mean it's all recycled. Everything is. George Santos claims he produced a Spider-Man musical. Now, people may think this is a joke, this George Santos thing. I think it has to be scripted and fake. If you don't know the story, he claimed his parents died from 9/11, his grandparents died in the Holocaust. He claimed so many things. He was behind many Ponzi schemes, and he made his way into politics, and he got himself into office. And I don't know how long this is going to last. But he's one of these, what do they call them? Fabulists. These individuals who just lie. It's not just compulsive, though. It's not just embellishing his resume. This is a representative, which means a lot of people helped get him into power. We just don't know who. Now, I don't know if the exposure of him was supposed to happen or not, but one of the things this illustrates is that I'm correct about this being a lie world order, and that I think that the basic form of psychological operation is just the lie. A lie is a psyop in the very basic sense, and I don't think you can go that high on the world stage without being a magnificent liar. And I think this is just an example of how liars get rewarded. And this all ties in, I think, to the very notion of like the reason why diabolos means to throw. It's referencing the devil as the accuser, or Satan as the liar, the father of lies. And whatever you think about them, I mean, I was looking at the Grammy Awards, and there's that song Unholy. I think it's safe to say that the power elite worship the devil, and they have taken lying to a really high art. It's very sophisticated. I think it's tantamount to magic in this sense. But anyway, this is like Jussie Smollett. Maybe the reason why they're exposing him, like they did Smollett, is to give the public the perception that, oh, if there's a liar among us, we would expose them. If there's a hoax, we'll expose it. And this makes the public think, okay, these are occasional events. These are isolated incidents. These are, well, exceptions to the rule. And I'm here to say, no, lying, psychological operations, no, these are the rule. The honest ones would be the exception, and they obviously get censored. Thanks to Timelapse on Twitter, who sent me this. Turns out we have another interesting thing regarding timing. I mentioned that the movie Moonfall came out the same day that this thing got shot down. Well, check this out. January 21st, 2022, monkeys escape after truck crashes. If you remember this, we had these monkeys escaping, and now we have this new story, a year to the date, arrest made in connection with monkeys taken from the zoo. So a year to the date, you have a story of missing and found monkeys. I don't know what that all means. I don't want to go too far into it, but I've come up with some interesting connections. Going through your comments here. Tominoid says, power comes from lying, lying big, getting the whole world to lie along with you. Once you got everybody agreeing, they know in their hearts it's not true, you got them by the balls. Is that from a movie? Sounds like something Al Pacino would say. Oh, Sin City. Okay, well, it's true. And lying is the basic form of psychological operation, and then you have, of course, higher degrees of it. But you can't get anywhere in the lie world order without being willing to engage in that, to lie on camera. Then you have the visual lies, which are almost more dominant now. Like it's almost more important to be able to tell the difference between real and fake visually than just discerning, because most of our experience is visual and we're lost as a society. People have been so immersed in bad CGI that they can't tell the difference between reality and bad CGI. I don't know if you can fix that necessarily. It's a philosophical crisis. All right, this has been great. And if you haven't had a chance to check it out, go to conspiratained.com. We're producing news. This is the world's first AI-generated tabloid. And before the end of the month, this will see print. And we are looking for writers, not specifically as in writing articles like in a traditional tabloid, but rather working with our AI bots to generate stories, like Liver King hospitalized after consuming his own liver. Balenciaga Frazzle Drip collection marks Hillary Clinton's fashion debut. By taking this underground elite fashion mainstream, Hillary is again breaking a glass ceiling. The AI generated art alone will make the tabloid worth the cost. Okay, it's Sunday, 2/6/2023. I expect it's going to be a very interesting week. We'll be live pretty much every single day. I want to spend some time going over this piece by The Atlantic about how we are already in the metaverse, a point that I've been making for a couple of years now about this immersive illusion. And the thing is, this is from The Atlantic. Their article has this graphic, which looks like somebody on an infinite plane, one. Two, the article makes every point that I make, only it says the people who don't believe the news are the deceived ones. It's just a complete inversion. But they steal all the good points, which kind of strikes me as interesting. Southern Poverty Law Center released 22,000 Alex Jones text messages. Why not 33, like Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails? But 22,000 Alex Jones texts. I'm hoping that out of these texts, which are being released little by little by SPLC, and right now they're focusing on his home life. Apparently he believes he's living in hell. SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, is one of these PSYOP reinforcement groups. They demonize conspiracy theorists. They say the AOK symbol is a hate symbol, etc. But listen to this. This is just Schadenfreude. They're enjoying this. Alex Jones describes himself as living in hell, being part of a sick joke sinking down into a black hole. Like gravity. Like a black hole. 22,000 texts. And they're all pretty dismal on this little collection here. Some of it's about infidelity, stalking his wife through a private investigator. It gets pretty personal. I mean, he's been treated worse than the Sandy Hookers. If anybody, I mean, he could sue. Alex Jones could sue Netflix for trademark infringement for stealing Inside Job. Says here, again, I'm not going to read any of this stuff, but apparently there's a lot of booze over at InfoWars, a lot of vodka. A lot of people are concerned about his drinking. I mean, this is all stuff that's really not all that relevant, but it's part of the ongoing process of iconoclasm. They're destroying this icon that they have built up. And it's all meant to intimidate you. This is an example of how things could go wrong if you don't start going along with and crying along with the TV during tragedies. If you don't start showing tears, and if the way they're going to measure your brainwaves. If you're not experiencing grief at every fake school shooting, yeah, they're going to swat your house. It seems like it. That's where they're headed. But I'm waiting to see the tweets from 1/6. So I am actually interested in going through Alex Jones's tweets, and I will. So just a heads up there, I'll keep you all apprised of what we find there. FBI warns of neo-Nazi plots as attacks on the Northwest power grids spike. Now just a heads up here. All of these neo-Nazis that attack the power grid to shut down the power to stop drag shows or whatever. They're all fake. They're all feds. Real neo-Nazis are just internet trolls. I have proof. The neo-Nazis, the ones who hate Jews, they're racist, and they want America to be pure white, the Nick Fuentes types, yeah, they're just internet trolls. They are not terrorists. They are not some kind of threat to our power grid. They are the scapegoat. But really, I mean, I try to be nice. I try to be nice to them. Like, I recognize they're just damaged and brainwashed and they can't think for themselves. They're broken machines. And they're not a threat. Okay, continuing. This Sataloon story's been great. I've been working on mind maps. If you go to metascript.cc, I'm making some updates there. And I have a new mind map right now that's really focusing on what I think is coming up with this Super Bowl. We'll cover that tomorrow. Another new development on the channel, I have started producing the short videos, 10-minute videos, breaking down topics independent from an actual live stream. Just something to look forward to. If you subscribe to Patreon, you will be in the know. Lean Dion says Trump's on 33 charges. Interesting. Let me take a look at that. Wouldn't shock me at all. Oh yeah, that's right. Trump could face 33 years in prison if he's charged. 33 years is what I'm seeing here, but has he been charged 33 times? Probably. Some of these charges against him are pretty bad. It's the type of stuff that if it was on the political left, the QAnoners would be all over it. I mean, really, if you look at it objectively, they're all just covered in pizza grease. Even JFK Jr. JFK Jr. was hooking up with Ghislaine Maxwell back in the day. That's like a document. It is one of her chief conquests. JFK Jr. I'm like, well, what does that say? I thought he was trying to stop these people, but he's actually literally in bed with them. Like, none of that makes any sense to me. Again, if you missed the news, thousands of computer servers around the world have been targeted by ransomware hacking attacks. Italy's national cybersecurity warns. Oh, speaking of security and national security, not only did Marcus Goldfinch get reported to the FBI for hacking Kickstarter, but he's also been reported for sharing secret documents. That's correct. Above classified documents. Something I reported on in my blog. I'm not going to go through it here. I'm trying not to give them too much airtime because they won't exist in the very near future. That story about Trump getting 33 charges was from a few months ago. Not too old. But yeah, good point there with Lean Dion. See, the cyber pandemic in Italy. If you remember, COVID started in Italy. Coincidentally, Tom Hanks was in Australia under quarantine. Meanwhile, Australia was on fire. It was an inferno. If you remember the fires in Australia that were all the news back right when COVID was about to start, Tom Hanks was on quarantine and Australia was burning. Now, what's the message there? Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, 2 weeks after they felt better. But my point is, here they are. Australia is burning because of climate change. And they're filming, I believe, the Elvis movie at the time. But the significance was Dan Brown has a book and movie called Inferno. Tom Hanks is in the movie. Inferno is about a super virus. So there you have your connection. Inferno, Australia burning, super virus. Now, in the movie, Tom Hanks wakes up in Italy in a hospital. Like, that's a weird connection because Italy is where the first lockdowns happened. And now we have the cyber pandemic beginning in Italy, the blackouts we've been talking about. No coincidence there. And I think there may be something with Christopher Nolan, given he's the one producing Oppenheimer. And I've looked into this quite a bit, and I talked about this the other day, that the Batman movie has a lot of predictive programming, not just for COVID, but for some kind of nuke. and now he's doing this Oppenheimer film, and Christopher Nolan is considered to be today's Kubrick, and that's very significant in this in the bigger picture here. If anybody faked the nuke that's going to be presented on the news as real, it is Christopher Nolan. Okay, I guess I should just mention this once, just get it out of the way. I have a new term here, just because, and I'm only dealing with this because I've been surrounded by these internet Nazis. I'm referring to them now as CJTs, for critical Jew theorists, because I hear a lot of criticism of critical race theory from the right. Like, well, you can't just frame everything that blames and blame everything that's wrong with America on whites, on race, and that's how critics of critical race theory see it, as sort of a scapegoating and as unfair, and as grievance politics, as not taking responsibility. But then here you have, on the opposite side of the fence, opposite from the critical race theory proponents, you have the ones who blame Jews for everything. And it's the same thing. It's grievance politics. I'm like, these internet Nazis all think they're being oppressed by Israel. I'm like, you're not oppressed. You're just indoctrinated. You're hyper-mediated. You're pretty much in a dream world. But I'm referring to them now as CJTs, because I think these are parallel, mirrored ideologies. I think they're both equally disconnected from reality. And I think they're both kind of political, I would just say footballs, more or less, or rather, these are just things that divide people along these political lines. But I mean, you can't even reconcile it. It's like you can't have a universe where both of these things are true. And this keeps the political divide intact. You can't say this group runs the world. No, this group runs the world. This group's oppressing me. No, I'm oppressed by that group. Well, who's oppressed? It's like the oppression Olympics. And I just think it's kind of a joke when I see these internet neo-Nazis trying to make the case to me that they're somehow being oppressed. And since I'm not calling out their imagined oppressor, I am now their oppressor. That's what they do. They say, oh, you're one of them. I'm like, look, I have nothing to do with that. Article here just came out about the blue marble, and it's from theconversation.com. Blue marble, how half a century of climate change has altered the face of the earth. And this remarks here that this picture sparked environmentalism. The first photo taken from space. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is 50 years ago, the blue marble catalyzed the environmentalist movement. Again, this is Baal, the earth god, looking at the face of their god. Now they're worshiping it as Gaia. Now the thing is, Avatar 2 came out, and I said this is just a replacement for the blue marble. And the more I look at this, the more this bears out. Not only was Avatar used, it's being used right now to do what blue marble did, but now they're fusing it with BLM. They're fusing the story of Avatar and Pandora with the Atlanta police cop city being built over a forest that these guardians of the forest eco defenders are trying to protect. And they basically staged the Avatar story in Atlanta between the cops and the environmentalists. I wrote a blog about that at timosman.blog if you want to check it out. Miles Mathis did an interesting article about a recent attack, another one of these race war provocations, totally fake. This was a bicyclist who was attacked. Supposedly the attacker said that he was taking revenge for systemic racism. Totally phony story. Laughably fake. But Miles Mathis did a piece on it, and one of the things he remarked is that there was a single shoe, and he took this as an indicator that this is a hoax. And he's not wrong about that. One of the things we've noticed, and a lot of people who've looked at a lot of these psyops have arrived at this, what is it with the single shoe that marks a psyop? Just seems like every one of these events has a single shoe. But that's not the only thing. Now, the interesting thing about this, though, and this is from milesmathis.com/mammon, the bicyclist stabbing appears to be fake. But what he remarks on here is that the stabbing victim is his age and in his area of the country, and he actually thinks, given certain terms that were used in this article, he thinks that this is directed at him. This is again Miles Mathis, one of the great psyop deconstruction artists out there. I mean, he takes it to a very elevated level here. I'll put a link in the chat. He says, I feel more and more like the Truman Show since this new theater project looks directly aimed at me. They know I'm a bicyclist living in California and they need to increase my fear levels. I think they're trying to break me. But as you can see here, I'm not buying it. Now, in this article, he breaks down how he thinks this psyop about a murdered bicyclist was targeting him. Very interesting article and story here, and I don't disagree. Now, are they trying to chase him off? I wouldn't be surprised. I think if you're in this area of research, yes, you do get, but I find, to be quite honest, I find the trolls among the quote truther community are the worst. Like you have more to, yeah, like with friends like these, who needs enemies? Okay, this has been great. We're going to continue tomorrow. And again, there's going to be a lot more content here in the coming weeks in the form of short videos. I am freeing up my schedule. I've really been bogged down with this legal stuff, but it's going to pay off in more ways than one. We are winning this thing. It's already been won, if you ask me. It's like one of these chess games where the sore loser just doesn't want to admit that he doesn't have a way out, and he's just going to run out the clock, but it's not going to work that way. We are bringing this thing to a close. I put a link to Patreon below if you want to sign up. And if you go to infiniteplane.live, you get all of the relevant links. And you can also sign up for text notifications. Salty Siren says the truth community's out of control. It's not so much that they're truthers, but it's that they're YouTubers. And I'm not a YouTuber. Like, this is independent of any of their platforms. YouTube hates me. But on YouTube, you have a closed, you have like this, it's a little ecosystem there. And you have a lot of big fish in this pool. And they just they want to keep, especially with the truther communities, it's small. So it's a small pool. Makes many big fish. And there's always been this contention between channels. I never got with that. I always thought, hey, why aren't we networking? Not for financial reasons, not as business arrangements that I'm saying. Why don't we just aggregate all of us who aren't completely hoodwinked? Which is what we're doing. Okay, I'm going through some comments. P. Trippa says Italy was also the origin of quarantine for 14 days. Yep. This cyber pandemic is part of the new agenda. It's the next thing. I called this out. This is why you have liberals leaving Twitter to run from right-wing memes. It's a repeat of the safe space. And the safe space was preparing you for social distancing and quarantine. And the quarantine and social distancing is preparing you for the internet becoming a safe space. And I think that's where the cyber pandemic comes in. And remember, Cyber Polygon was an exercise that was being planned for July last year. And on the day that they were going to do Cyber Polygon, because it got canceled, they had major outages throughout Canada. No coincidences. All right, there's so much to talk about right now. A lot of the symbolism right now has to do with the heart, as I've been talking about, as we've been seeing. And it's just been emphasized all over again, with Kendrick Lamar winning Best Performance for The Heart Part 5, which ties in with this Black Christ symbolism. And you see here the crown of thorns that he's wearing. And I'm putting together a video of all these figures that embody this and what I think it actually means. because I think we are. I've been thinking they're going to introduce a new Christ for the new age, a new martyr that will consolidate everyone, all the believers under one faith, and they're all going to agree that this person epitomizes everything that's right with the world or with people, but what's wrong with the world, and he's going to suffer for it, and it's going to be some kind of tragedy. Like I kind of figured that we're going to have someone, perhaps a civil rights type figure, taken out in order to say, hey, look, we've got to do away with right-wing memes altogether. We got to do away with pro-gun attitudes altogether globally. Like that's kind of what I thought. Maybe that's where they're headed, but I don't think there's any one figure that they could kill, like another MLK, for example, or a Malcolm X. I don't think there's any one figure that could catalyze everybody into accepting this. So I'm thinking now that we're seeing a non-stop, I would say just back-to-back train of martyrs, that collectively we're seeing the crucifixion of, not, I'd say we're seeing crucifixion of the poor, of minorities, of victims of this classist system, of the capitalist oppression. The poor can't breathe, the environment can't breathe. And I think that's what we're seeing here. The can't breathe is asphyxiation, which is the crucifixion. Okay, I'm going through your comments. I put all the relevant links. I've been doing a little more review work. I'm writing a review for the rig, which if you haven't seen the rig, I recommend watching it. It's about the Kraken. It's about Earth becoming sentient, fighting against the oil rig workers. But what's even more, it ends with EMP. It ends with a blackout. It ends with a huge flood. And again, George Floyd's name means flood. And I think these things are just symbolic. I think the Kraken, Leviathan, is awakening. And that statue in Manhattan of the goddess with the tentacle arms, yeah, that's what we're seeing here. It's the rising of the Kraken, the Leviathan. It's not some big Godzilla creature from the sea. It's collectivism. It's the hive mind. Here's a link from here, Zero Hedge. Italy's Tim suffers internet connection problems. Wasn't, I don't think it was more than 12 or so hours, but it's back on from what I can tell. But I'm just thinking that these things are, the timing of it suggests these things are interrelated. And the first caller brought up that balloon being reminiscent of an egg or the moon. And again, this is the lunar year of the rabbit. You have the lunar rabbit, and China is going to the moon next. You had the lunar shooting at the lunar nightclub, which had a bunch of balloons and space stuff in the background, by the way. And finally, I think the other connection here is they have the jade rabbit. China has a jade rabbit on the moon. So there's some kind of lunar rabbit connections, and these eggs can't be coincidental. But we'll continue to examine this stuff as this story develops. Yeah, Phase Polarizer remarks the rig is on Amazon. One other point about the rig, the main characters in it are from Game of Thrones, and there's a parallel here. They're at the edge of the world, and they're witnessing the fall of the West. The Westeros burns, and you have what looks to be radioactive fallout as dark winter sets in. Winter is coming. The rig ends the same exact way. And it gets even a little deeper, I think, because when the first character in that movie dies, he falls 400 feet, and one of his eyes gets busted, and then he raises from the dead. So you have this man who falls to earth, and like the new man falls to earth, he's black. So you have the black star, and he becomes the savior. He has the one eye symbolism, and he's the savior in that he is resurrected, but now he's one with Gaia, and Gaia speaks through him, and he says, hey guys, we need to stop drilling for oil, we need to grow plants, pretty much. My point is, the whole movie is about revenge against toxic masculinity, revenge against oil workers, and against the exploitation of Gaia. It's basically the same story as Avatar, and the timing of Avatar and the rig And the Davos group is not coincidental. Lean Dion says she burns down Westeros on a dragon. Yes. And in the rig, you'll note that it's a female that takes over, a woman takes over, and the men resent it. And not only is she taken over, but her job was to more or less phase it out, shut it down. So we're looking at a repeated theme from Avatar as well. The bad guys were the Marines with their guns who couldn't connect with Gaia because they had buzz cuts and short hair, and they were domesticated and trained and indoctrinated. Then you had the wild ones with the long hair, and they could just plug their hair into the trees and talk to Gaia. And this is the same story that they just played in Atlanta, where they turned that forest area into Pandora. This is just very blatant predictive programming. That article, if you haven't read it, it's proposed cop city is Pandora to the eco-anarchists. And in this article, which I'm posting below, this is the one protest in Atlanta where the governor sent 1,000 National Guard out. They sent National Guard out. I went to the pictures and the imagery here. They use the big world tree. They point out the long hair. But look at this here. If you remember this article, the riots, there was a cop car burning. And some guy from Fox came out and he says, it's a mostly peaceful protest. Meanwhile, there's a cop car burning behind him. Well, look what was above the burning cop car. What's interesting is we all know about product placement. Like in school, they teach about how evil marketers are, and they're doing product placement in movies. This is product placement. It's the same thing. Here you have the word Weston right above a burning cop car. And all of their posters for this protest have a tree representing the world tree from Pandora devouring a cop car. And again, the West, think Derek Chauvin, a cop. Nothing epitomizes the oppression of the West more than the police officer. And then you have the martyr in this case is shown reading books to his children. 2 different books. Goodnight Moon, there's a moon reference. And Where the Wild Things Are. And Where the Wild Things Are is pretty much the story of Pandora. Where in Pandora, this guy goes wild. He goes into their world and he merges with them and he becomes their king. And in this story, in Where the Wild Things Are, the kid puts on his wolf pajamas, he joins the wild things, and he becomes their king. So Where the Wild Things Are, Goodnight Moon, you can connect these to Pandora because Pandora is a jungle moon. Martyred activist associated with these things, the big tree, the cop car below being this is just to me it's super obvious that what we're seeing here is again, and look, they even said this, if they don't protect the forest, if they don't protect the straight pines and the oaks, if they don't protect Atlanta's tree canopy, there will be flooding. Avatar 2 is called The Way of Water, and it's about a water-based race like Atlanteans. Again, this is in Atlanta. Again, proposed cop city is Pandora to the eco-anarchists. Put a link here in the chat if you want to check that out. Lean Dion says the balloons around the letters lie. Yeah, the Luna shooting, the lunar ballroom shooting, lie. Yeah, totally obvious. Okay, this has been fantastic. We'll be back. So many things to catch up on, but I didn't want to fall too far behind. Tomorrow I'm going to try to really finalize everything with this court thing so I don't have to take any more time off. So one thing I didn't want to happen. You don't want the trolls to win. You don't want to feed the trolls because your most valuable thing isn't your money. It is your time. And you can't make up for lost time. We have 48 to 72 hours of fake news to parse through every day. There's just not a lot of time for trolls. But I'm hoping that this will send the right signal. And if nothing else, this will get YouTube, I believe, to finally respect the copyrights on this channel. And you'll see our YouTube channel at Infinite Plane Society blowing up. And as I said, you want to subscribe to it because I am making it a point to upload a lot of short videos that go into specific topics. And I'll take suggestions. If there's a specific psyop that you want examined, if there's a world stage character or any kind of narrative that you want me to look at, a 10-minute to 15-minute block of time, I'll do it. I have a very fast system. I'm using Canva and my phone as a microphone. It's super easy and it's going to be very effective moving forward. Anyway, thanks for joining. This is Fepe Akbar, Allergic to Bullshit, featuring Lean Dion. I'll go back to the 24/7 after this.
Keep it real, that's a profession. Like the whole world is pretending. Found the truth around the penguin. Get a gang on with a blessing. All the other gang are stressing. RPSC on a nesting. Only real ones gonna get this. Fake ones don't accept this. They can miss the message. Timbuktu got bodies, yeah. Find them in our wreckage. Auto host and message. Squad are representing. Killing you with knowledge, yeah. The uppers getting dirty. Oh, you're so effective, cause we're so effective. Let go of your worries, yeah, the whole thing is a setup. We got it and we get it, offering refreshment. Level up your conscience, yeah, it's honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable, facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable, give a fuck about saving you. We could keep on playing you, you just keep complaining too. Game is unescapable, unless you're with the gang or no. Messing with the penguin. We're messing with the penguin. 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 Fucking with the penguins. Yeah, with the penguins. Coming with a vengeance, trying to make you come to your senses. Forget the general consensus, just pay attention. The rules to hesitate with good intentions. I'm clenching my back wrenching, representing only the most superior independent media. We got that real shit fucking encyclopedia. We're bringing an end to this mass hysteria. They wanna know why it's so serious, cause you must be delirious. If you're still believing stuff, get a grip and show some evidence for your bold claims. We don't play no games, we stay relentless, exposing those events. Quick, the IPS are making an entrance. Busting doors down, cause now's the time for interventions. Did I mention we're affecting so many men across the spectrum? We stand out from the crowd, we don't blend in. Steady gaining tremendous momentum. There's nothing close to resembling. Check the emblem, it's a penguin, not a gremlin. Just letting you know you're on an infinite plane, it's never bending. We strike like temping, killing all fears and breaking the tension. Gotta know the hopes on me, digging deep in the trenches. Come and join in, be adventurous. Quit being so sensitive, forget the censorship. We ain't telling fibs. Messing with the penguin. We're messing with the penguin. You're messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin. You're messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin. Quit fucking with the penguins, yeah.
One of the things that I like to analyze with all these events is, you can analyze what you don't see, the actual victims. You don't see any evidence of real mass casualty, the victims, the crisis actors. You never see tears. I haven't seen a single tear yet. Nobody cried, nobody died at any of these events.
They are shown to be. Yup, that's an auto hoax. So what you're saying is you don't accept the claim as missing proof, then you label it.
Exactly, it's an auto hoax.
Wow, sports is scripted by the number.
All right, it's 12/22/22/2, 8:49 p.m. We're going to go ahead and start early, a few minutes early. Sent out text notifications about 10 minutes ago. Newsletters have gone out. I see there's exactly 33 in the video chat, another 20 on audio. I think we can start. Dave Raven Zeros in chat says, Do you still have ambitions of sending up a camera drone to document the flat Earth? As I remember, your mission would have had the drone equipped with a 50 millimeter lens instead of wide. That wasn't really my mission. We were involved in the first civilian space program, and that was Mad Mike's mission to space, but that was a human observer, and it was a raccoon. And the point was we wanted a human observer because you can always just dismiss video. We wanted firsthand on the presumption that it hasn't been done yet, that the astronauts have all been actronauts. And to my knowledge, that's still the case. The burden of proof has been shifted. We still want evidence they went to the moon. And the best they can do? Petrified wood, passed off as moon rocks. And one of my favorite sound bites on the entire internet is the NPR story about moon rocks. How, yeah, it was all just petrified wood. And they just say it so nonchalant. No damage control. Just a little 30-second clip here. I'm going to play it. And you know what they're just basically describing is
Hey,
how
NPR. There's a lot to keep up with in the world of electric cars.
that the Dutch National Museum had received moon rocks from the 3 Apollo 11 astronauts when they visited the Netherlands. Anyway, an expert looked at it and they identified the rock as petrified wood. And this is why NASA has a SWAT team. Because if they find out you have a moon rock, they'll come to your house. They'll go meet you at Denny's and take it from you.
I'm Steve Inskeep. A prized possession in the Dutch National Museum is not what the curators thought. Back in 1969, the Apollo 11 astronauts visited the Netherlands, and the U.S. ambassador gave the Dutch prime minister what he said was a moon rock. No doubt it gave a warm feeling to the U.S. ally. But when an expert saw it in the National Museum, he said he wasn't so sure it was real. Geologists have now identified the moon rock as petrified wood.
All right, there you have it. Until you can figure that out, don't tell me we went to the moon. Don't tell me that anyway. You can say, those guys, those Masons over there went to the moon. Don't say we went, because it wasn't a big ship. There's only 3 people crammed in that little tin can. I mean, really, people associate themselves with a mission. Oh, we did this. It's a collective achievement. No, actually it's not. My favorite one is we won the Super Bowl. We won the game. It's like, what do you mean? Is the game sitting on the couch and eating potato chips? I don't think so. I don't think you won. I mean, I understand this identification thing. It's part of our national identity. And that's why it's so hard for moon landing believers to let it go. And this is a kind of a separate topic, but I've been going through some of my books today from Jim Fetzer. And this is Moon Rock Books, and I think these are probably banned everywhere. They probably have a place at Amazon where they take them all and they burn them. This is in fact, I think Moon Rock Books was sued. So I have a lot of signed copies of Fetzer's books, and the one I'm looking at now is called, and I suppose we didn't go to the moon either. This one's called Nobody Died in Boston either. This one's great, by the way. And I've been looking into Fetzer today because someone was asking me, and it was Nicotramus. He's like, people need a basis for comparison. They need to know what makes this thing seem fake versus the real thing. And I just kind of moved on from that because I've seen the real stuff. I've seen real dead bodies. I've seen people in shock. I've seen people crying. Look, if you find a YouTube video of somebody mourning a lost pet, you'll see more real, raw emotion than in 50 of these crisis actors combined. And it's because the way we communicate is more than just the words that you're reading off a teleprompter. There are micro expressions, there's posture, there's so many non-verbal cues that you could be seeing that would indicate this person's really experiencing trauma. And the totality of the message I get from the average crisis actor is, I'm getting paid. And it's quite a racket, quite a ruse, quite a deception. No blood, no tears. But the next day, they bring around the candlelight vigils and you get a flood of tears. For some reason, a lot of people holding candles together in a circle just makes people cry. And then they bring out the Red Cross so they can donate blood to the non-existent victims. And I'm like, where's all that blood going? They're basically sucking blood and tears out of everybody over something that was just pure theater. Angst G says, why does NPR always speak in subdued tones? Robert Bell says, their audience is subdued. Raku says, spell casting. Right, Angus MacGyver, microaggressions. Microexpressions are a big deal. They do communicate a lot, and words are just a part of what is communicated. And the mask, of course, erased half the face, and I think that's because they want to eliminate facial expressions and go with something a little more universal, like emojis. And when everyone's wearing a visor on their face that represents their metaverse avatar, it won't even matter. Like, we are transhuman. All right, let's see who's here. Wayne L. Sexton has joined us. I was hoping you would show up at the Club Q shooting. Would have been a nice bookend to the performance piece you did over at the Florida Pulse nightclub shooting. AJ206 is here. Portal Complex, thank you for joining. 737. 35, more coming in. Mel Gibb. Is that the real Mel Gibson? That's the character we need to look at. A director and an archetype. Very interesting when you get into the symbolism behind like Mad Max and stuff. And wasn't 2022 the year of Mad Max? Oh, everything is so exaggerated. Like, people are getting disappointed left and right because their doomsdays aren't happening. I mean, Mad Max just means gas prices go up for a few months. All right. Osher06, Tyrone McCloskey, thank you for joining. Tyrone says NPR are all potheads, too numb. Oh, to numb the line that pays their rent. No, I think they're true believers. I listen to them. In fact, if you notice, the IPR logo looks like the NPR logo, because I feel like we are their antithesis. Like, we are kind of doing the real thing. Like, they're actually just reporting from the world stage. We're reporting from the off-world stage. But I think we serve the same purpose. Like, we're kind of objective. We're not too opinionated or slanted. We're neutral. Or at least, I mean, I don't think they're neutral, but they try to seem that way. If you believe in global warming, you're not neutral. That's a political position. Joined by Wonka World, thank you for joining. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the petition. Stop YouTube from suppressing the Infinite Plane Radio podcast. So far, 226 have signed. And this is a petition to get YouTube to hand me the trademark and copyrights to this podcast, which is presently owned by actor and stuntman and MAGA influencer MG, we'll just say. We're getting to the point where it's reaching a conclusion. My avenue for finally bringing this person out to where he can be served papers is by naming him as a co-defendant in this identity theft case where he utilized YouTube's legal department to seize my name and voice. He literally wrote them a letter and he's like, yep, that's my voice. And that's why we've had 150 YouTube channels. Anyway, this is the next attempt to try to make something happen with that, and we're not going to let it go. I'm not in a particular hurry. I think it's inevitable. It reminds me of those chess games where you get to the end and the person's in check and they move one and then you move back and it just goes back and forth, and usually just out of courtesy they concede after like 50 times. I mean, there's just a point where they don't know when to give up, and there's just sore loserism all over the place these days. I think Carrie Lake is an embarrassment. And what do you all think of Donald Trump's cards? I don't know if I'd call it an embarrassment. I mean, the bar is so damn low. But turns out that most of his trading cards were ripped out of like a Walmart product catalog. Like, you want to buy a duster from Walmart, look at the catalog, and then just imagine putting Donald Trump's face on it. This is from 1945.com. Another big problem with the Trump NFT collection: they use copyrighted materials. According to Benzinga, it's been noted that some of the images are Trump's head on images from stock photography, small apparel business websites, and clothing available on Walmart's and Amazon's websites. One image was a photo taken by Reuters, and it was a photo of Trump playing golf, and they didn't ask permission to use it. The Trump golf NFT is a slimmed down. Oh, that's something else I've noticed with Trump's images. I think what they do is they make them like 8 heads tall or 9 heads. There's a certain, let me see what the exact measurements are proportion-wise. Like when you're doing portraiture, there's this idea that you just kind of estimate the average human figure is about 7 to 7.5 heads tall. Well, looking at some of the photography released by the Trump campaign, I sometimes noticed that it was almost like they made him 9 heads tall, or 10 even, giving him the proportion of like a god, like a Marvel superhero, and I think that's intentional. And if you look at comic book characters, they mess with the proportions. They're actually completely unrealistic. You'll never live up to it. My point being, they work all the photos like that. It says here, even the folds in his pants are the same. They couldn't even hire an artist on Fiverr to make some NFTs. They couldn't even employ one person to do that. Did Donald Trump commit copyright fraud? And from what I understand, these things are more or less stuck in a wallet, and there's really no way you can obtain any future value from them. I don't know where it's going, but we'll see. I mean, a major announcement. We had people thinking he was going to bring out Ye as a vice president, MTG, JFK Jr., aliens, the deep state. People had their hopes way up. They thought Trump was going to be reinstalled. Trump 2022, they were saying Trump 2023. And no, it was some NFTs. And not just any NFTs, but NFTs that were just crop and drops made with stuff from a Walmart catalog. What a brilliant grift. He didn't even pay anyone on Fiverr, and he made like $5 million. All right, I want to play a clip here. This is from John Talks. When environmentalism reaches new levels of cringe, this is from Canada, you're going to hear some environmentalist rap.
Biodiversity, it's an emergency, and we're on the brink of a million Earth species that are sure to be extinct. We've got a lot of problems, but we also have a lot of solutions.
Now, this is from the 2022 UN Biodiversity Summit, and I'm pretty sure all of these activists arrived on private jets so that they can gather and decide how the rest of us can learn how to stay grounded and learn to love minimizing our carbon footprints.
For change, they stop the same. Stop the same. All my mammals in the back that are facing the facts, they stop the same. Stop the same. Thank you so much.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, if you're just listening to it, you probably like it. But you have to imagine, these people are all wearing costumes like they're globes. It's a bunch of plush globes bouncing around the stage. Like, I think this falls in the category of cringe. Not quite Alex Stein level. There is some skill there. I'm not going to totally knock it. I mean, when Greta Thunberg did the, what was it called? The Rickroll. I'm pretty sure she killed the Rickroll. Like, it hasn't been used since. And I'm not going to play it. Tyrone McCloskey says, Trump is scaring away all the remaining fanatics. He's disarming his own bomb. Very smart comment there. I was thinking about this. I was like, wait a minute here. It's almost like they're trying to allow everybody to cool off, have a nice Christmas, because they're left without any kind of resolution. And maybe they want to give it time to calm down before something happens. Because unless something big happens, the Q movement, I think, is pretty much defunct, moribund, dead. By the way, we are back on Amazon Music and Audible as of like half an hour ago. Again, if you listen to Infinite Plane Radio on any podcast, or if you have Audible or Amazon Music, just search Infinite Plane Radio. We just popped up. We're also on iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're making our way back around. We were knocked off 25 platforms, but now we're on a more solid base, and I'm manually going through and submitting to every single one. And soon we're going to have our own live tune-in channel. But the thing is, it's about numbers, and this is why we were cut off these things, if you ask me. You get into Audible, it opens up millions of potential listeners. And it's real organic in the marketing. It's not totally slanted like it is on YouTube. It's completely different. It's more or less unregulated. And I think that's why they've been working so hard to get into podcasts and the idea of hate speech and isolating mind viruses. Joe Rogan kind of has led the way with this. They use him as a sort of a canary in the coal mine. They didn't hit him as hard as they hit Jones, because Rogan obviously plays it a little safer. And by the way, some judge, they struck down Alex Jones's claims to any kind of bankruptcy. They're not going to let him have bankruptcy protections. He says he's only got $2 million. I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of low. I mean, I've seen there are YouTube grifters making much more than that. I mean, Alex Jones has been they've been solidly putting out content all these years. I find that to be unbelievable. And they had some forensic economist go through his stuff, and they think he's worth 270 million, whatever it is. But the fact of it is, he's what we'd call pharmacos, a sacrifice, a scapegoat. But is he really a canary in a coal mine in any meaningful way? I don't really think so. I think he's actually just a 200-pound rotting red herring at this point, because what he is doing in his present capacity is making the focus on that one event. And it completely obscures the fact that we're actually looking at Psywar. It's like, hey, I'm looking at a forest here, and they're focusing on this one tree from 10 years ago. It's like, we've moved on. It's one of the reasons why I was referencing Jim Fetzer's work, because look, I find it interesting that there are some people who are like, oh, this one is fake, but this one's real. I'm like, did you change operating systems? It doesn't make sense. I mean, it would be the same if you were like, oh, Apollo 11 was fake, but Apollo 17, when they were golfing on the moon, yeah, that one, totally real. You see the inconsistency there. All right, now if you're looking at the screen, there's an image of Joe Rogan on ice. I woke up to this. I looked at my Instagram, and it's Joe Rogan in a tub of ice in his backyard. And he says he does it to, I think in his words it was to kill his inner bitch, or whatever that means. Nothing inside to keep him warm, but his some swimming trunks and his toxic masculinity. He stood in there though for a good, he sat in there for a good minute. Facial expression didn't change. I mean, I don't know. It kind of made me feel lazy, and I actually walked across the street to 7-Eleven, about 30 degrees. Got some ho-hos. Prophet of Doom, Putin vows to deploy Satan 2. Finally. Finally, it's about time. This is going to be... I thought this was going to be triggered by the visit of Zelensky to the White House. I thought that would be too much. I was kind of doom hoping they would do it at that time. We says audio. Yeah, just refresh. I'll put a note here in the chat. Refresh if you're not hearing any audio. I have a monitor here and everything's good. Angus MacGyver says James Cameron said testosterone is a toxin. Right. I've read some reviews about his latest movie and I want to check it out. James Cameron is a metascripter. He's an insider. We talk a lot about Terminator 2. And speaking of Satan 2, Satan 2 has a correlation to Terminator 2. We're talking about the nuke and what this represents. It would be Satan 2 that is pulling the plug on Western Civ. And we're talking about his war on the West, the Antichrist West. And Terminator 2, James Cameron, Skynet, the robots, time traveling, all this stuff. What it comes down to is it's the Terminator going back after JC, or John Connor. The Terminator represents, of course, the point where the day ends, the Terminator line. Symbolically, it's when the sun god dies, or JC. It's just this recurring theme that you see in many of these movies. But in Terminator 2, specifically, you have 9/11 predictive programming, and you have a nuke blowing up in Seattle. And these two things, I think, are very significant because the nuke would presumably be delivered by a submarine, like Hunt for Red October. Because we're living in a Tom Clancy novel or inspired script right now. It'd be a submarine delivery mechanism is what I'm thinking here. And again, the Seattle thing, we often refer to this because it happens to manifest in a lot of predictive programming. It's just very common. But now, getting back to James Cameron, this is very significant because on 9/11, 2001, he happened to be in a little submarine called the Deep Sea Challenger. Again, on 9/11, he's in a Challenger, and he's visiting the wreckage of the Titanic. Now, if you look at the symbolism of the Titanic, the Tower of Babel, it ties in to the One World Tower, the Twin Towers. There's this theme here. What we're talking about with this idea of too big to fail, the West, all of it falling. So it's highly significant that James Cameron would be at the wreckage of the Titanic on 9/11. I mean, he was down there filming a documentary at the moment the towers went down. Fascinating little bit of subtext there, because I think the next 9/11 is probably going to have to do with this Terminator 2 situation, the nuking of Seattle. And this has been talked about so long, like, and I know it sounds like, maybe people are guessing or they're wrong on their prophecies, and it's like, that's not really how it works. There's predictive programming for everything going back a long time. 9/11 going back, decades of preparation for these things. All right, Diana South says audio is great on DLive. Yeah, look, we are going to expand to all platforms, even the ones that are mean to us like DLive that take away our lemons. That's the whole idea for 2023. Going to just continue to maintain this nightly schedule. I don't think we're going to have any more speed bumps. Whenever they would throw me off these platforms, it changes the whole business plan. All right, let's move on. Prophet of Doom, Putin vows to deploy Satan 2, obliterates hopes of peace. Pretty sure that's photoshopped, but Zelensky is still wearing that jogging suit, and I don't think he's changed. I don't think he's changed clothes since 2/24 of this year. I think he's been wearing the same outfit the entire time. Does anyone else get that? A killer nuke could be deployed from Moscow, and it could reach the UK, which is 1,600 miles away, in 6 minutes. Range 11,000 miles. It's 114 feet long. Satan 2, 208 tons. Now, this is just another obelisk. The cult that runs the world, whether it's a rocket or the priest praying at a big stone idol, or it's a weapon like this. Yeah, this is just to get you to fear or respect or ogle at the power of the state. I'm not impressed. I don't find it all that believable. Lloyd Miller, who was banned from Discord for talking about vaccines skeptically. And look, he was pretty objective, and we argued, we debated, and I'm more informed for having debated with this person. And that's one of the things, I don't kick people out of the Discord server. I can't anyway. I lost that ability. My main account was terminated, but I have so many clones they weren't able to delete the whole thing. Yeah, they try to take us out. But I like it this way because I have no intention of banning someone because we don't agree. I'm trying to understand the nature of our disagreement, and it fine-tunes my arguments. Like you may have noticed in the last 6 months or so, or maybe 3 months, I'm not combative, but there's been a lot of things I just won't let go of. And I appreciate people who take the time to challenge and try to refute these things. But it's been very helpful in putting together the book, World Stage Deprogramming Manual, which there's probably 1 or 2 copies left if you click the link below. And the link is right there. I just placed the order, and there's a limited number, and I have 1 extra held for Linda, who was on her phone and it wasn't allowing her to finish the purchase. But the book is on pre-release on Amazon, and it's going to be released on 1/13/2023. Those of you getting the paperbacks or getting the preview. And I'm going to record an audiobook version of it as well. And if I have it done before the release date, I'll update the file, and I'll have a link where you'll be able to download the audio version. Anyway, here's what Lloyd said. Lloyd Miller does have a Substack account. Quote, I actually find it strange that rather suddenly the elite has decided to rely entirely on censorship and intimidation instead of reasoned discussion in science. I mean, they know their program cannot be defended with reason and science. Yeah, it must mean that. Why aren't they willing to just have open debate? Why are they burning books? If the truth is on your side, why would you be so insecure? I noticed they're not trying to censor the internet to get rid of people talking about Bigfoot or ghosts. And the things they try to censor tell you everything. They broke the internet. They ruined YouTube over the flat earth topic. It's like, look, if the flat earth topic is that auto-debunking, just totally bereft of any kind of real meaning or value, then just let it wear itself out. But they acted like it was the end of civilization. Hank G says, they threatened us with doomsday so much we've become immune to it. Yeah, I think so. I think they've overdone it. We've been saturated with this. They've been talking about Armageddon and Judgment Day for months and months, and it's all bluff. And that's one of the key things here. It's about the bluff. If they can get you to cower because you believe in these things, then why would they need to deploy it? And it's getting harder to fake things when there are so many witnesses. I think that's the real reason why they try to curtail the number of people live streaming from their mobile devices on the excuse of, we got to stop these shooters from live streaming. Echo Charlie says, your last one, you should take off the art channel. Please clarify. If you go to Infinite Plane Society on YouTube, that's the handle. It's just the art channel. Joined by Witch Hazel, Garrett Summers. Thank you for joining. Well, my response was this, though. And this has to do with, their censorship, intimidation, instead of reason and discussion. They don't want people to have reason and discussion. I think they want to have us so saturated with stories and news and narratives that we don't have time to actually get to the heart of anything. I think their objective is, of course, to have us flooded, so we reach for the nearest blue check. Now, I was on Twitter today, and I mostly respond to strangers. That's why I don't care about how many followers I have. I'm not here to build a big account. I'm not here to be a Twitter influencer. And I noticed the word influencer and influenza are used almost synonymously, the way they talk about it. Like, oh, these influencers are infecting people with mind viruses. If you don't listen to left-leaning liberal podcasts, and I could recommend a few, if you don't listen to them, you won't know how paranoid they are. Like, they believe all this stuff. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's their religion. Anyway, a guy on Twitter posted rare 9/11 footage, and after he posted it, he said, just waiting for the people to say that it's fake any minute now. And I said, CGI planes can't bring down buildings. Lynn responded to me. This is Lynn Lino Stradler on Twitter. Explain what you mean, please, and what are your credentials? What are my credentials for saying that the airplane was CGI? I said, you've had 20 years to look at the evidence. At this point, you don't know the truth, but faithfully believe the narrative you were fed by the perpetrators of the psychological operation. My credentials, I can think. And that's really all it is. And she was never heard from again. Because what we're talking about here is, are you defaulting on the responsibility to perceive for yourself and letting the screen supplant that and take that responsibility for you? Most people's lives are being screened. They're being filtered by this process. And it's by design. I think 9/11 was not about terrorism in the sense of Islamic terrorism. It was about the media, which is the principal terrorist, using the media of, well, what appears to be a terror attack to focus everybody and drag everybody into this massive world stage production where they have effectively merged the world of make-believe with real in the minds of the masses. Like, they've really done some damage. I think this is a philosophical crisis. Although, if you've done any study into cults, the ones that end badly, Scientology, Jim Jones, Heaven's Gate, if you do any study into any of these cults or some of these Mormon groups that are all polygamous, you'll find what I'm talking about here, where people in a cult have a different world view. It's a schizoid break from the real thing. And it's easy to point at a cult and say, well, that's bizarre, that's weird. They're out there. But I'm like, well, no, the world stage, the dominant world view is actually out there. Ollie Goering says, Elon Musk is Willy Wonka minus Voldemort. Zelensky is Mike Teavee, character in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I might need some imagery there, some images, if you want to put them together. A lot of people pointed out how Zelensky looks like George Soros. And I was thinking, could he be George Soros in one of those old man costumes? Because George Soros is like the go-to bad guy for the uh, fringe right. Like they have their billionaire heroes now. You know, I was thinking about this. On the right, you got your Musk, you got your Trump, and you got your, well, Ye's not a billionaire. But on your left, you have your Soroses and you have your Zuckerbergs. They each have their heroes. Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban's hilarious. He's the one who calls it the triple comma club. Like you've really made it just because you're a billionaire. But he's like whining about how if everybody can buy a blue check, he won't know who to follow. Because before this, the blue checks were only given to insiders. I don't think you were able to buy it before, if you remember. The way you were able to get blue checks before, you had to attend one of these parties, presumably where you drink the blood of a baby or something. But now anybody can buy it, so Mark Cuban doesn't know who he can trust. Because we're not all in that club. All right, phones are open, 833-311-1984. One other point I want to make about the schizoid break from reality. There are what many people are what I would call uninformed believers. They believe something because they've been told. And you ask them, what's your reason for it? I don't know. Going with the flow. That's fine, but you just have to recognize that that's an unreasoning mind, at least with regard to that. Because most people are just selectively unreasonable. They switch it off. And it's fascinating if you consider how we watch movies. In order to be entertained by it, to not ruin it, you can't sit there calling it fake every minute. You know, you suspend disbelief and you just go with the movie and you know it's just a movie. You compartmentalize that suspension of disbelief. When people watch the news, they suspend disbelief, and that's by design. And that's what I mean by the public has been put into a place where they cease to make this distinction between real and fake if it's coming to the screen. They have that suspension of disbelief when it comes to the nightly news. And if you question the news, it's almost like you're at a movie theater saying, well, that's a continuity error. That water bottle shouldn't be there. Like if you start calling out stuff in movies, they're going to throw you out. And I feel like that's the same attitude they have to the so-called conspiracy theorists. They're like, oh, this isn't real. And they get kind of mad. You're insulting their beliefs, their mythology, their set of myths. All right, let me go ahead and go through my Twitter feed. How to find. Now, this is a great series, and it's a 4-part series. I listened to part 1 today. It's Dr. Catherine Horton interviewing Professor Emeritus Jim Fetzer about the application of scientific reasoning to false flag events. Now, most of you here know that I don't use the term false flag. False flag is a misnomer, and I think it's one of the biggest obstacles to getting people to understand just what media is. If you think that they're employing false flags, the term false flag, it generally implies it was real, but it was staged by somebody dressed as somebody else. Like, for example, the feds dressing as MAGAs. That would be a false flag, and then they go commit violence at the Capitol. But a hoax involves no real violence. There's a big difference there. But Jim Fetzer pretty much calls everything out as hoaxed. But the term false flag is something he uses, just pointing it out. I'm not all that nitpicky about it with regard to him, but it's not entirely accurate. These days, I am definitively calling things what they are, which is hoax, psychological operation, perception management operation. But one of the points they raise, one of the points that Dr. Horton raises here in this discussion, is how psychopaths are flatline when it comes to emotional responses. Like if they see, as she was describing it, paraphrasing, the way they would respond to a dead body is the same way they would respond to a picture of a plate of food or something. That they just flatline. And that's what she was pointing out, was that's kind of why people who watch the news don't look too closely, is that they don't flatline. They respond emotionally. If they see something shocking in the news, it colors their perception, and they don't look. She was talking about Boston bombing in particular. And I noticed this too. The news will say, warning, graphic imagery. People look away. And she said that most people aren't psychopathic. Most people respond emotionally and they're repulsed by the stuff, and they will look away out of just fear. That this fear-based response short circuits the critical thinking. And you have to look at these things clinically. You have to be objective. That's why I say off-world stage perspective. If you assume it's real, you have a different filter with which you analyze it. If you know it's a hoax, it just makes it different. It makes it not necessarily easier, but you're more analytical. And it sounds cold and psychopathic to people who don't know why you're saying this. Like, why would he say this thing was fake? He must, and Alex Jones, he said it was a psychosis. Like, you mean you have to be crazy to be analytical about the news? That's the narrative they set. And that's why I refer to him as a red herring. Diana South says, afraid to swim against the stream, they're not even curious. Well, precisely. And, well, here's the thing, too, and I think this is engineered into it. I think that what they have done is that they have put every perceiver in the vulnerable position of being over-reliant on what is being told to them. And if there's any kind of a contradiction, they've made it very clear that to point out the contradiction, to be the one that calls out the naked emperor, has repercussions. There's pain attached to it. There's damage to your reputation. I mean, you could lose quite a lot just for questioning this stuff. And this thing is such a cult. I mean, where but a religious cult can you get in trouble just for asking questions? But they've made it so painful and so plainly obvious that if you go against the grain, you're going to be exiled from the community, that most people won't even go there. The cognitive dissonance is just the price they pay. And the apathy, the selective ignorance, it's not going to help them when they have no clue what's going on. And the next thing you know, you see them in Walmart wrapped up in garbage bags with buckets on their head because they think there's some mystery flu. They're clueless. They're what I would call underinformed. I mean, you have the misinformed masses, then there are people who are not watching the news as though it's some kind of prophylactic. Like, I'm not going to watch the news. I don't care about those mind viruses. I'm safe. Well, not really. You don't exist in isolation. Nobody's off the grid. And whenever they pull something, and we don't know what, you may not have access to the right information, or you may have the emotional response, not the analytical one. And that's what I think is also worth pointing out. The people who respond emotionally pay for it. It's been documented that even doom scrolling is bad for your health. I was pointing out this morning, or yesterday, my mouse had broken, like the wheel came off from so much doom scrolling over the last 2 years. Although it hasn't harmed me because I'm not assuming it all to be real. To me, it doesn't have that ability to trigger me. And there's been a war on question marks. I pointed this out like 3 years ago. I said they're going to send the UN troops into your house. They're going to rip the keyboards out, or the Q's and the question marks off your keyboards. You can keep your keyboard, but it's going to be missing a couple of teeth. It's going to just have a couple holes there. Well, there was a Q, don't need that. Question marks, don't need that. Then they have this movie coming out called Don't Look Up, which sounds like don't look up information, listen to the experts, which was the premise of the entire movie. Because they didn't listen to the experts, and the world, like the Titanic, was hit by an iceberg, a comet, and everybody dies. Then, spring 2022 rolls around, Batman movie comes out, and the main villain is essentially Q. And his symbol is the question mark. Like, it's endless. All right, let me see if I have any voicemails. You can leave voicemails, just 833-311-1984. And we'll respond to all voicemails live. Okay, nothing yet. Did Donald Trump commit copyright fraud? We'll look into that. O.J. Simpson finally admits he's not Khloe Kardashian's father. We have to catch up on the Kardashians. Keeping up with the crisis actors was something we started in 2018. And then this year, keeping up with the crisis actors kind of became keeping up with the Kardashians. It's kind of merged. But the reason why I highlight this article is that OJ, who didn't kill anybody, because nobody actually got killed. Ask Megyn Kelly. But there's a connection here between the Kardashians and the O.J. Simpson thing, and all this talk with Kanye, and they tried to say he's going to go O.J. They started that last year when O.J. was loosed last December. It's interesting. You just see how it's a closed community here, and it's all part of this reality TV. Well, all these individuals that are connected to reality TV, and the area where it merges with the what I would call the psyop entertainment complex. Because you have to realize that the entertainment media, just like the news media, are both used by the psyop entertainment complex. And when I say entertainment, it's more about mind entrancement. I'm not saying you're necessarily amused. You can't turn away. Yeah, if you don't know what I meant by Megyn Kelly, I said ask Megyn Kelly. There's this long-standing rumor slash conspiracy that Megyn Kelly is Nicole Simpson. And you know, Marcia Clark, who was, let me go ahead and bring this, I can probably find this interview. But, you know, if you go back to the O.J. Simpson trial, Marcia Clark was the prosecutor. She was known for being the lead prosecutor in the O.J. Simpson case. She was on the Megyn Kelly show. And the first thing Megyn Kelly said was, I was a big fan of yours when I was in law school, and I watched you on TV, and there's this conspiracy that I'm Nicole Simpson, and they both laugh. Like, why would they even bring that up? Doesn't make sense. And last night we brought up that Trey Parker and Matt Stone from South Park are definitely Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the Littleton shooters. Yeah, that's definitely a fact as well. Might be inconvenient for some. I don't have any particular attachment to any of these idols, so when I find out that they're all just role players. Look, she got a promotion. No hate. She was serving the PSYOP complex in some way, and they rewarded her with some kind of a gig for life. Echo Charlie says, what a year. Uvalde happens at the same time Alex Jones is getting sued into oblivion. Well, remember, too, right after Uvalde, what happened? You had the NRA had their conference right out there in Texas, and it was protested because of Uvalde. ESL says now she's had enough plastic surgery to dissolve any resemblance. Well, I'm wondering if she and OJ were actually ever married. Like, he wasn't really in jail, if you ask me. Like, I thought, well, maybe they had like a really, like at Megyn Kelly's house, like the basement's just a big fake jail where OJ hangs out, like his man cave looks like a prison, and that they've been together this whole time. I don't know, I'm not behind the scenes. But the dupers delights all over their faces when they bring these things up. Candace Owens defends the Confederate flag and equates slavery with owning yachts. Man, Ye really knows how to pick his friends, doesn't he? I was reading, Nick Fuentes was like, we need something like the Taliban in the Afghanistan to control the women here in America. Like he doesn't think women should vote. I'm like, wait, Ye, you're taking on a campaign manager who is instructing you that half the population shouldn't even vote. Like, that's kind of a losing strategy there. You need every vote you can get. Anyway, OJ is not Khloe Kardashian's father. I'm sure they're all emerging from some kind of a vat. Freedom Tower in New York. What does it look like? This was posted by This Zen Moment. Worth looking at. Does anybody here not see a massive needle, a Vax needle, when they look at the One World Trade Tower? 1,776 feet high, opened on 11/3/2014, 13 years after the twins. It represents the 2 into 1. This is part of the major alchemical transformation, and I think these are continuous rituals. I think 9/11 and 3/11 are intimately connected, and this is one of the ritual props and focal points, because the world was united with the needle. And what else? Fear. We were united in fear. Everybody was so scared they had to hide in their homes from this invisible threat. And of course, the syringe, which is what the One World Trade Tower looks like, the word syringe comes from the Greek word syrinx, meaning pan flute. Again, Pan is the god of panic. Think pandemic, universal or all pan, uh, universal fear. We had a pandemic. It was a panic-demic. And of course, the thing looking like a big syringe, pan flute, ties into that. And we've kind of correlated this with the dancing nurses, the nymphs, which makes perfect sense. And this is going to be part of our upcoming documentary. We're kind of gathering footage for it now, but I want to put together a lot of the best material, well, the worst of 2020, however you want to look at it. Good bad is what I used to call it. You know, when something is bad, but it's kind of good for the reason that it's bad. I mean, it's kind of a contradiction. A lot of bad movies I watch fall in that category. Joined by Tim and Vic. 131 says better late than never. Thank you for joining. Again, if you just missed or if you just arrived, we're back on Audible and Amazon. Been doing a lot of legwork here, just getting us back up to speed, and I feel like we're almost there. Lately, we've been talking about the Q movement and what it's become, but how I think it was a psyop to radicalize a fringe and brand them as some kind of American Taliban, which is kind of what Nick Fuentes espouses here. Anyway, one of the main culprits in radicalizing the QAnon movement was General Flynn, who openly bragged about running psyops in Afghanistan, which makes me think that it's a parallel psyop, that for 19 years he was part of the psyop of radical Islamic terrorists, that particular mind virus, the Quran virus. Now it's the QAnon mind virus. Same program, but it went from external terrorists to domestic violent extremists. Anyway, unsurprisingly, Michael Flynn served in the military for, and I'll let you answer this, how many years? How many years was Flynn in the military where he participated in psychological operations, information, warfare, etc.? Just answer in the chat. I'll give you a hint. It's the same number of rounds that Frank James shot into the subway. It's the same number of years between the photos taken by Richard Drew of Robert F. Kennedy as he fell to his death and the 9/11 falling man as he fell to his death. There you go. 33, Echo Charlie, Tim and Vic, Diana South. Yep. Flynn was serving for 33 years before he got, whatever happened, he retired or whatever, but he was sort of defrocked. He has some kind of beef with Obama over it. But my point being, he's one of the main Pied Pipers of the QAnon psyop, if you want to blame anyone. Lynn Ertel sent this to me. 2 demonic entities enter Travis Scott at the Astro World Festival, caught on video. I haven't watched this yet. I saved the link. I bookmarked it. I was just going to check it out here live. This is from Global Agenda. Okay, at the 27:42 mark of Travis Scott's ill-fated Astro World Festival in Houston, he appears to get hit with a demonic entity from above the stage. Now, there's fog, there's smoke. This is a stage. I would expect there to be some kind of special effect capability. But I do see it. It looks as convincing as the demonic portal above the White House that Roger Stone keeps calling the cops about, and they keep ignoring him. He's trying to get the hole above the White House dealt with by the police, trying to get it swatted. Do you remember how fast the police were to act when there was like a COVID violation? It's like you're getting robbed, there's a home invasion. Yeah, 20 minutes they'll be there. When the action's over, when they don't have to do as much work. But you're like, hey, my neighbor just coughed and I didn't see him with a mask. The police were there in like 5 minutes. Salty says, I saw those dancing with a stage, didn't know what it was that went into him. Well, Travis Scott, who's connected to the Kardashian cult, is, or was born on May Eve, April 30th, which is the anniversary of the Church of Satan. And this year was the 56th anniversary. And I'm pointing this out because the Astro World event, this concert where 9 people out of 50,000, were crushed to death, supposedly. This event was 66 months. Let me get the exact 6 days from the founding of the Church of Satan. I mean, Astro World was all just replete with rich. It was basically a portal thing on the stage, but it was definitely what you would consider to be some kind of a satanic ritual, I suppose. I mean, what else can you call it? People seriously think Astro World deaths were Travis Scott. Satanic conspiracy theories were. Look, Astro World tragedy fuels satanic ritual conspiracy theories. Well, what do you call it?